Not yet.
I see a very big Claire.
I see a very big Karen.
Depending on what machine you're on, if
And just checking for on the agenda on Friday. As for disclosure of pecuniary interest, we have two. Both are Councillor Solomon, and the first one is under 14D, the Downtown and Main Street Area Community Improvement Plan, and also 15D, which is a proposal for construction for pickleball courts in the community of Erie O. Next on the agenda, we have the deputations, and we have received 4 deputations this evening, and the clerk's office will read them now. The first one is with regards to agenda item 15D, the proposal for construction of pickleball courts, community of Erie O. Mayor Caniff and Chatham-Kent councillors, thank you for accepting my written deputation regarding the proposal for pickleball courts in Erie O. My name is Leo Hoovelmans, and I am the chair of the Erie O Community Association, ECA. Our association is comprised of a dedicated group of volunteers who are committed to our community. We are not a not-for-profit organization that provides a liaison between citizens of Erie O and the municipality of Chatham-Kent. We have completed numerous projects in our village, which includes a children's accessible playground, gazebo, and boardwalks to the beach, to name a few. In the fall of 2020, the ECA supported the idea of the construction of a pickleball court in partnership with the municipality of Chatham-Kent. It was agreed upon that the city would provide the site and ECA would provide funding for the project. Upon completion of the project, the municipality would assume ownership and maintenance of the courts. The committee researched, visited, and consulted with other municipalities to gain insight on the construction, cost, and challenges to make this a successful project. In consultation with a reputable project manager, we developed a 3-phase plan for this project that is wheelchair accessible. Phase 1 includes 2 pickleball courts with fencing. Phase 2 includes the construction of a sun shelter with cement pad and sidewalks. Phase 3 includes 2 additional pickleball courts with fencing. Each phase would be completed as funding becomes available. As the project progressed, we kept the community informed through discussions, presentations, social media posts, and communicated with property owners located in close proximity to the site. This transparency has proven to be well received by the community. Pickleball has now become the fastest growing sport in North America that the whole family can play together. The availability of the courts will encourage all age groups within the community to become more physically and socially active and meet the criteria of an age-friendly Chatham-Kent. Over the past 10 months, we have been working closely with CK Parks and Recreation Department to develop this site plan. We look forward to our partnerships with the city to complete this project. In closing, we encourage all councillors to support our proposal for the construction of a pickleball facility in Erio. Thank you. Regards, Leo Hoovelmans.
Our next deputation is on item 16D, the motion by Councillor Finn regarding the opioid crisis, and it's from the Chatham-Kent Drug Awareness Council. I am writing on behalf of the Chatham-Kent Drug Awareness Council to request your support in ending the drug poisoning crisis and the toll it's taking on our communities. CKDAC is a service-driven organization that promotes education and knowledge exchange to our community to help prevent, treat, and reduce the harm associated with substance use. We recognize that the municipality of Chatham-Kent has brought forward significant progress in some areas to respond to the overdose crisis, but there is still a long way to go. At present, there is no comprehensive plan to address the overdose crisis, even though it is one of the largest public health emergencies of our lifetime. Stigma and criminalization cause people to hide their substance use, and as a result, many are forced to use and die alone. With one life lost in Canada on average every 2 hours, the tragedy of preventable and unnecessary fatalities continues to devastate families and communities across the country, including Chatham-Kent. Advocacy is needed at the provincial and federal level to declare the overdose crisis a public health emergency and change failed drug policies. However, there are actions we can take right now for Chatham-Kent to ensure our own community members are able to live long enough to see these long-term changes. It is our stance that the municipality of Chatham-Kent, provincial and federal governments need to do more than has been done to date. Therefore, we are requesting that our municipality, together with others in Canada, consider passing the following resolution calling on the federal government to, 1, do the right thing and declare the overdose crisis a national public health emergency, and that the crisis be met with the same urgency observed in the federal response to the COVID-19 pandemic. 2, provide education to communities about decriminalizing the possession of drugs for personal use and scale up prevention, harm reduction, and treatment services. We are happy to assist and take part in any conversations moving forward. Thank you for considering this request. Sincerely, the Chatham-Kent Drug Awareness Council.
This next deputation is written by the initials RR, whose name has been kept just to initials to keep confidentiality. RR is a peer pathfinder and a person with living experience and expertise. The names in this particular story have been changed just to preserve confidentiality. The deputation reads as follows. I heard the most heart-wrenching, melancholic plea for urgent help coming from the garage early that afternoon. I've never heard Melanie's voice sound so filled with pain and so desperate. I could tell I didn't have much time. I shot out of my seat at the kitchen table and threw the door open to the front porch with such force. Looking back, I'm shocked it's still attached to the wall. As I reached the shed where Bob was located, I was shocked to see him lifeless on the ground. He was laying on his side, lips blue, eyes half opened and partially closed. He had 5 other buddies there that afternoon. All of them were in a state of panic, erratic, unaware of what to do. Everything slowed them down, and I knew I was his only shot at survival. I immediately checked his pulse and listened for any breath. Neither was present. Time was critical, so I began CPR. I yelled for Melanie to go find the Narcan and urged everyone else to be quiet. The voices of the 5 men screaming were like a screeching train wreck. I yelled out at them to be quiet as panic was not going to help. I continued CPR as I waited for the Narcan. I was eventually able to regain a faint pulse and some shallow breathing, but that only lasted moments before I had no pulse or breathing again. I needed the Narcan. Finally, Melanie returned to the shed. Barely breathing, I gave him a dose. No effect. This was not looking good. I needed to try again. With help, I got him into the back of his truck. On the ride to the hospital, I monitored him in the back seat and watched him get worse and worse. I feared that we would not make it. We arrived at the local emerge and I got him into a wheelchair, his lifeless body so heavy. I just needed to get him to see a doctor immediately. We passed triage and get him straight onto a waiting bed. The staff we saw were so dismissive and rude. Whenever I spoke, they dismissed me or outright ignored me. If I asked any questions, they rolled their eyes and became annoyed. Their eyes felt like they pierced through me with hatred and disgust. We were made to feel like subhumans, like animals that did not deserve care. The nurse inserted the IV with a naloxone drip, immediately leaving after without a word. I stood at the door of his bed to watch over him, and this nurse quickly reappeared, threatening to have me removed if I did not sit down. I was on the phone with his wife, who was urging me to take a photo of him alive and breathing. The last she saw her husband, he was so unresponsive and didn't look like he was going to make it. The nurse saw me take this photo and immediately told me I had to leave. I refused. This made me feel lower than they had already made me feel. In a setting that is supposed to feel safe and with people who are supposed to provide care and support, I was told I had to leave. They called security to escort me out. I had not committed a crime. I was there to try to save my friend's life. I reached out to my friend Lisa, who is a social worker at the same hospital. I was desperate for some type of support, as I hadn't received any from the staff thus far. Lisa and security arrived at the same time, and I was thankful that with her advocacy, I was able to stay. We could then ensure my friend received the same level of care anyone would expect. I was able to stay and wait until his wife arrived at his bedside. When she got there, I left the hospital feeling overwhelming sadness. As I walked out completely exhausted, I wondered if someone having a heart attack is treated the same way. I already knew the answer. Sadly, Chatham-Kent, along with many other communities, views addictions as a moral failing where the individual causes their own misfortunes, rather than a health issue deserving care and support. I hope that we can help educate our communities to stop criminalizing people who have addictions. In the time of desperation and life-threatening overdose, people need to feel safe when seeking care. The exact opposite is often the case, and for many people, that means not seeking proper care and support. And when that happens, where are those people now? Are we really doing everything we can to help? Story by RR, peer pathfinder and person with living expertise.
The final deputation is on the same item. Dear Mayor and members of Council, the overdose crisis. I am writing on behalf of the Rock Missions to request your support in ending the drug poisoning crisis and the toll it is taking on our communities. My life has been personally impacted by the overdose crisis due to loss of a lifelong best friend and an opioid overdose in 2020. My friend came from a loving middle-class family and was attending university to obtain a music degree. Difficult events such as losing his mother led him to the introduction of opioids, which can happen to anyone. The shame and stigma that went along with the misuse prevented him from reaching out for help and effectively navigating the system, which ultimately led to his death at the age of 25. His death ravaged the community and social circles he came from in Chatham-Kent, with grief, confusion, and utter disbelief that something like this could happen to someone with a bright and promising future. Addiction does not discriminate, which is why we must ensure as many safeguards as possible are in place to save our family, friends, and loved ones from being taken from us from otherwise preventable deaths. We recognize that the municipality of Chatham-Kent has brought forward significant progress in some areas to respond to the overdose crisis, but there is still a long way to go. At present, there is no comprehensive plan to address the overdose crisis, even though it is one of the largest public health emergencies of our lifetime. Stigma and criminalization cause people to hide their substance abuse, and as a result, many are forced to use and die alone. With one life lost in Canada on average every 2 hours, the tragedy of preventable and unnecessary fatalities continues to devastate families and communities across the country, including Chatham-Kent. Advocacy is needed at a provincial and federal level to declare the overdose crisis a public health emergency and change failed drug policies. However, there are actions we can take right now for Chatham-Kent to ensure our own community members are able to live long enough to see those long-term changes. It is our stance that the municipality of Chatham-Kent, provincial and federal governments need to do much more than has been done to date. Therefore, we are requesting that our municipality, together with others in Canada, consider passing the following resolution, causing the federal government to 1, do the right thing and declare the overdose crisis a national public health emergency, and that the crisis be met with the same urgency observed in the federal response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And 2, decriminalize the possession of all drugs for personal use and scale up prevention, harm reduction, and treatment services. Thank you for considering this request. Sincerely, Darren Trainer. Mr. Mayor, that is the end of the deputations, and we'll move on to consent agenda. This evening, the following reports are being pulled. We have 13B, tender award for the replacement sidewalk and concrete repairs, is pulled by Councillor Sakachi. 13C, contract award for the airport management services, has been pulled by Councillor Carmen McGregor and Councillor Kirkwood White. Item 14A, CK Tourism Sector Recovery Support, is pulled by Councillor Kirkwood White, and there will be a presentation on this report. Item 14D, the Downtown and Main Street Areas Community Improvement Plan, has been pulled by Councillor Harrigan and Councillor Sakachi, and Councillor Summon has declared a conflict. Item 15A, the Innovation Update Infrastructure and Engineering Services, will have a presentation from administration, and Councillor Latimer has pulled that report. Item 15B, options for assisting the relaunch of the youth sport field activities, has been pulled by Councillor Latimer. And item 15D, proposal for construction of pickleball courts in the community of Erie-O. We have a conflict by Councillor Solomon, and it has been pulled by Councillor Harrigan and Councillor Sakachi. The next report is 15H, increased service levels in trails, parks, and open spaces, and this has been pulled by Councillor Harrigan and Councillor Sakachi. Item 16A, grow your own health support worker, has been pulled by Councillor Kirkwood White and Councillor Latimer. 16C, Tilbury Manor Nursing Home Update, has been pulled by Councillor Harrigan and Councillor Latimer. And item 16D, the motion of Councillor Finn for the opioid crisis, has been pulled by Councillor Finn and Councillor Kirkwood White. Therefore, to be approved in the consent agenda this evening, we have items 12A and B, items 13A, 14B, C, 15C, E, F, G, I, and J, item 15B, and items 17A, B, C, and 18A, B, C, and D.
Councillor Finn and Councillor McGrail, can I get you to move the consent agenda?
I'd be happy to make that motion.
Sure, and I'll second it.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in and motion passes.
Okay, under tender awards.
13B, tender award contract number T21-107, 2021 replacement sidewalk and concrete repairs.
Councillor Sakachi and Councillor Bondi, can I get you to move this, please?
Happy to move it, Your Worship.
And happy to second.
Floor is yours, Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff, and through you to, I guess this would be to Mr. T-Bear if he's on the line, or directly to Mr. Kelly. I just had a couple of questions in regards to that. This was approved, according to my notes here, on May 10th, 2021. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. This is Chris T-Bear, Director of Engineering. Yes, that is correct.
So I know the report was very well done in regards to the challenges, but I guess what's the time frame that did they indicate a time frame, the current contract that was successful, how long it would be before they would be able to do this work? It said that there was an issue in the original contract in regards to the time start. Are we talking like months, or are we talking like a season?
No, so the previous contractor that was awarded this contract on May 10th, that was Dakoko Contractors. They actually contacted us and let us know that they can no longer fulfill the terms of the contract due to staffing. and due to challenges that they're having with staffing. And they didn't identify any form of delay or timeline delay, because we would have been happy to work with them. However, they just said that they could no longer do the contract and are therefore asking to be pulled out.
Okay, so there wasn't actually a time frame discussed, and the reason why I'm asking is that this is just quick math is like $167,000 extra money that we're having to allocate now. So I just wanted to be ensured that it wasn't something that they could say that they could do at a later time. They're basically saying that they're not going to have the staffing in place to do these projects this year. Then that's correct.
That's correct. They indicate that they have no longer have the staffing in place to fulfill the contract at all.
Okay, perfect. And the last question I'll just have is that we've obviously seen some more concerns in regards to contractors that can't fulfill their agreements that they've initialized. We have a project right now in Blenheim that we're waiting on, and I do see in the staff in the report that they are going to be bringing this back to council. Do we have any kind of timeline that's going to be kind of discussing the repercussions for such matters? For instance, the occurrences that are happening in regards to this.
So we did follow up with the new contractor there. So that's it's going to be Autoform is who we're requesting that this be awarded to now going forward. And in our discussion with them, they are happy to, of course, acknowledge their previous tender for this project, even though it was back in May, and they are willing to meet the timelines associated with this contract as well. They didn't identify any real concerns or anything like that. If that was part of where your question is from?
No, I guess my question is more targeted towards the fact that, if we opt into these contracts and the municipality decides to waiver from them, I guess there's implications. And in the report, it indicates that further implications would be discussed at a further date with council. And I'm just wondering when the implications from the past contractors, we would have kind of an idea of the implications that would be taking place.
Thank you, Mayor Camp. So I think with regards to the potential legal implications associated with this contract, that would be better maybe answered through Dave Taylor, our Director of Legal Services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor, for the question. As with any kind of legal process, there is some variation in the timelines, but when we'll necessarily have full information for council. But I would anticipate being back to council in the 3 to 4 month timeline in order to at least give council an update on where we're at in relation to that contract.
Okay, thank you for the time.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
Just waiting for one more, council. There we go. All votes are in. Motion passes. Moving on to 13C, Contract Award R21-226, Airport Management Services.
Councillor C. McGregor and Councillor Kirkwood-White, could I get you to move this, please?
Happy to put it on the floor. I'm not sure that I will vote in favor of it at the end. I have a number of questions, but happy to put it on the floor.
Happy to second.
Okay, Councillor C. McGregor, the floor is yours, followed by Councillor Kirkwood-White.
Thank you. And just reading through the report, and thank you for the report. I know Ryan is not here, but I think my questions will be directed to Thomas Kelly. So I just had some questions about the report, and I know that we've run a deficit at the airport for numerous years, and I'd asked for information. And I know that the average deficit over the last 5 years has run at about 219,471. I think is what the 5-year average was presented to me from Mr. Quinton today. And I see in here that our recommendations, we are asking for additional money to go into the base. So I just have some questions about, one, what is our average usage at the airport? And Thomas, I know that you're going to be directed. Do you want me to list my questions and then let you answer?
Well,
Maybe. How about I just take
How
them one
about we
at a
start
time?
with this?
How about I
Okay,
take them one at
that's
a
fine.
time? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So the first thing I'd like to do is share my screen if I could, and just show you your with respect to your first question. You asked what the overall usage was. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, so what this is from our annual general meeting. Every year we hold a meeting with all of the airport users, which includes both commercial and also private users. And what you see across the board here are the airplane movements. So that's really how many times they've taken off basically and landed in our airport. It's broken up in with respect to the piston type is the primary blue. So that's your traditional small airplane. But then we have other breakdowns, so helicopter, turboprop, turbofan, and then turbojet, and then gliders as well. But the predominant use is a piston type airplane. And you can see the range is typically our high was around 7,000 in various years. And last year being a COVID year was closer to 4,000. So we did see a significant drop in usage, and that's primarily to a lot of that is because we lost a lot of the US traffic as well.
Okay, thank you. I'm wondering, have we considered increasing whatever the user fee is at the airport for those using the airport so that we're not realizing a deficit each year?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So what we've done a few years back, we came back to council with a report that looked at our current hangar costs, our lease rates that we utilize, and also to introduce an infrastructure fee for all of those new type hangars. There are some agreements out there that are, 40-year, 50-year range, some even higher. So it's very difficult that we can touch those. But our source of revenue is the lease money from those hangars. Also, we have some different aspects called tie down rates. We also have commercial landing rates as well. And also so there's a small opportunity to increase the tie down rates and also the commercial landing rates. And we've already, I think, done the job as far as making sure our hangars were market competitive. So that would be the only opportunity. The annual cost or the revenue from those landings and the tie downs is still under $1,000. So we could look at that, and we think from a market perspective, at the end of the day, we need to be competitive with other airports. We could do something there, but still we're only talking maybe about $500 in total. The last opportunity we have in revenue is for fuel sales. And most recently, we've increased that as well as far as our portion of the sales of all fuel.
Thank you, Thomas. And I'll put these next two together. I'm not quite sure why we have a municipal airport, and that's more of a comment, but have we ever considered privatization?
So the answer is no, and the reason was primarily in the past, we had two big users, two big companies that use that facility, and really their lifeblood of their company and their success was based on that airport. So those companies were RM and also Enbridge. Enbridge has since pulled out of the airport, and it's been replaced by a couple of other large players as well. So we're still very positive in that respect. But the main reason we haven't considered it is that, as you know, that we just we're a local group just purchased Navistar, for example, and we want to be able to track the largest businesses we can to come to Chatham-Kent. And if you don't have an airport that these large firms can fly into, we're at a significant disadvantage. So you mentioned the average is around $219,000 that we're subsidizing. That would really, I think that's a very good investment, because what it does for our economic development department is it allows them to attract some of these larger firms. And if we didn't have an airport, I think we'd be at a significant disadvantage. We've been told that by different firms that they are only here because we have the airport. And I suspect that will continue. So it's more or less a business investment for us.
So, and with the increase to the base budget that you're asking for tonight, that's going to bring probably our annual deficit up into around 300,000, correct?
That's right. That's correct.
Okay, and I'm just curious because at this point, and probably getting a couple more answers on some of the things that maybe could have been included in the report. But is it possible that we can consider a one-year contract with Z3 Aviation while we further investigate other options to help make this a little more self-sustainable within our community? I would like to investigate privatization. I do agree that it's very much a benefit to have an airport within Chatham-Kent for the economic development side of things. But there's lots of things that we have and like to have within our community, but we very easily talk about discontinuing because it's being supported by the tax dollars. So is it possible for us to just consider a one-year contract at this time while we get further information back to council?
So thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the current contract of the airport manager who's in place now expires on July 6th. And we put this contract out there based on actually consultation with some experts in the field and also looking at what other municipalities do. And we wanted to certainly attract someone who would come here to make it worth their while and who has the expertise of running an airport. At the end of the day, we only got one taker. And even then, we tried to provide as much flexibility. So in order to make that commitment, they wanted at least a minimum of a 5-year deal. The RFP went out with a 5-year contract extendable to 10 years. Our last contract was 10 years. So my concern would be manyfold at this time, that whether we could convince the existing airport manager to accept a 1-year contract. People just want to make commitments on this and to know that they're going to be there in the long term. I know that also Z3 has many initiatives planned, one being the marketing of the airport, also a flight school they're trying to bring in. And at a 1-year venture, I think it would be very difficult for them to move forward with some of those initiatives. So we really looked at it more long-term as a whole. I think the way the contract is structured too, that we have the option, as noted in the report, that we can essentially, if we wanted to go down that route, there are options in the airport, or sorry, in the contract that we can give notice and essentially remove ourselves from the contract. Maybe my colleague Dave Taylor would like to comment on that from a legal perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor, for the question. So we do walk into a bit of an issue here trying to change any contractual terms at this point. The contract has been let out, as Thomas indicated, for a 5-year contract, and that's how the successful proponent or recommended proponent bid in. So as Thomas said, we're running up to the end of the existing term of the contract, and so trying to change the terms at this point, I just don't think is feasible due to that existing structure.
So just a question, why would an RFP and a contract come to us this late in a contract if we don't have any decision? And why is it even coming to council if we have no ability to negotiate on this, or councillors don't have any opportunity to have any part of understanding this and being a part of accepting this contract? We're kind of held hostage here at accepting this contract. At least that's the way I feel right now and the way it sounds. I can't support it in a 5-year contract. I would happily support a 1-year contract with information coming back to council. And if by chance this fails, and it probably won't, but if it fails, I will certainly put forward a motion to move to a 1-year contract while we investigate some of these areas and have a proper report brought back to council so we can make a proper decision on this. The only other thing that that I would maybe add to this would be a question of something that Mr. Kelly had said about a Z3 Aviation planning to market to bring in, say, flight lessons and other services into that airport. If they do that, are we going to benefit from that, or is that something Z3 Aviation is going to benefit from? Is the taxpayer going to benefit from those programs or increased programs at the airport?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So with regard to the marketing of the airport, what that would mean is that currently the airport, for example, is certified. So we can attract all US traffic as well as commercial traffic in the future. That may be a restriction. So what we're trying to do is market the airport so that we have more of these folks coming into Chatham-Kent. And when they come, they land and then they go to our cities and they spend their money. That's the intent of it. The flight school is intended to, there's another program out there called COPA for Kids. We also have a Flight Fest and also a Thunder Thrust as well. These are all events that are intended to get the public interested in aviation and to really better utilize the airport and to create more users in the future, essentially. So in theory, that if we can generate this interest, and it has happened over the last 4 years, we are averaging greater than 1 increased hangar per year. So we have a lot of land out there that's underutilized right now. We had an airport master plan just approved by council, and unfortunately, that direction that we would consider divesting the airport has not been brought up before. That's why we proceeded down this path, that we felt that the council direction was that the airport was a good investment. And so we proceeded in that manner. So it was approved in the master plan for the airport by council, what our strategy would be. Also, when we looked at divestment of assets, the airport never came up as well. So that's why we felt that council was in support of keeping the airport long term.
Thank you, Thomas. So basically, based on what you've just said, then if they increase programs at the airport, then we benefit by those people visiting our community, not by any program, or we benefit by, say, if there's a flight thing, whatever vendors show up there, we benefit in that manner. And then we also would only benefit if other people lease hangars. Is that correct?
That's the source of revenue, as well as the fuel sales as well. That's another source of revenue for us. So again, the intent is to try to generate more and more interest in aviation, to create more sales, to have more people come to Chatham-Kent to visit as well. And that's a very common practice amongst those in the aviation. Unfortunately, I do not own an airplane, but I can tell you it's very common that we have users in Chatham-Kent that will go to Goderich for a Hamburg. And that's just something that there's a community that's formed amongst all the aviators, and they like to visit other airports. We have regular barbecues out there during the summer, and our users of that are coming from other areas within Ontario. So it's a practice that it's very much of a social outing as well for some of our private users. But at the end of the day, the municipality benefits because we get this increased revenue with people staying and really visiting Chatham-Kent and potentially living here one day as well.
Well, and with lots of other areas too. So I'll leave it at that. I can't support this as it is. I think we need to have further information on it before I feel comfortable with it. And like I said, I prefer a 1-year contract with information coming back to us, and then maybe it's extended at that point of time. But I would really like to see how it really benefits the taxpayers. I know it allows in a luxury for those that can afford to have that hobby and be able to tour around. But I sincerely am concerned about, even with fuel sales, we are very close to the center of Windsor and the center of London with larger airports that can access that, which is very short time to get to Chatham-Kent. So unfortunately, I can't support it, and I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Councillor Kirkwood-White.
Thank you, Your Worship. I am going to confirm my second of this motion. I've had the pleasure of working with Marion Smith and her team on on at least 2 or 3 occasions, and I know that there is an issue. I appreciate the questions that were posed by my fellow councillor and the answers that were provided by Mr. Kelly, but there are other assets that are costing us money too that are also a benefit to economic development. So I am going to support this.
Mr. Shropshire, followed by Councillor Latimer.
Thank you, Worship. In addition to what Mr. Kelly said about the master plan for the airport being presented to council and is following council direction, I think it was one other important point, and that's when we have contacted the people that run businesses and use the airport. So certainly in the past it's been Enbridge, but still RM Enterprises and some of our other commercial businesses. They've told us in the past that they would not be able to run their business, or especially a headquarters type business, if they did not have the availability of an airport. I know when Enbridge was using the airport on a regular basis, that was something that they made very clear to us. So I think there are different ways to repurpose the airport, and that was the attempt that we were trying to make through the master plan. And I think Councillor McGregor, you've raised a number of concerns. Had we had that information when we were preparing the master plan, I think that we could have delved into it in much more detail. But at the present time, we don't have a lot of options if we're going to continue to operate an airport over the next couple of years. And I think, as Mr. Kelly's pointed out, we have an operator that we have faith in. She's done a really good job with her team. And I think if we want to explore either privatizing the airport in the future or looking at some other option, I think it's going to be far more than a year to do that. Just in this last contract, we only were able to get one expression of interest. So I think we'd have to do a lot of work if we're going to actually think about changing it over. So I would encourage council to support the recommendations. Thank you.
Councillor Latimer, followed by Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, through the mayor. I would like to echo Councillor Kirkwood-White and Mr. Shropshire's comments. I have attended, I've worked with Marion Smith and her team out there on a number of events over my last almost 3 years in council now. And every time I'm out there, I am amazed at the comments that I receive from people who are visiting our municipality from across Ontario, the United States, and internationally, from Italy, France, Germany, England. Many of our local businesses are international and nationally based, and I think it would be a true if we did not support this recommendation tonight without actively engaging the stakeholders, I think we would there will be a lot of negative impact. I also think I would like to certainly entertain the idea of a presentation to council with regard to our aviation team up there and Marion Smith and her team, and maybe some information from the local businesses that use that airport regularly, what their plans are. I know I had the chance to attend for a short time anyway, the last annual meeting, and it was pretty exciting, the plans that they have for that tarmac. Acknowledge Councillor McGregor's concerns, and I think we need to look at perhaps, I don't know how much of the budget for the airport is, do we get monies from economic development, or is it kind of a share thing, or do we just acknowledge the benefit and not budget for the airport through economic development? So all questions we can look at come budget time, and hopefully we can have a presentation about this economic driver in our community.
Councillor Bondi, followed by Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. I'm going to support the recommendation. I think it's important that we maintain an adequate airport in Chatham-Kent. I've argued many times with people, or not argued, but suggested that when we build things like the Bradley Center, the Capitol Theatre, perhaps a new arena complex with some sort of professional sporting team, if we don't have an airport that can accommodate at least some form, hopefully, of commercial traffic, something like the Bradley Center, if we were to engage in wanting to host, say, for instance, a regional or perhaps provincial realtors conference. Well, if there's no air access, and we're never going to get these sort of things. These are important to the economic development of Chatham-Kent, and without air traffic, and again, I don't believe that we do really have commercial air traffic at the airport now. I think it's personal, corporate, but expanding the airport, hopefully over time, would allow us that ability. And without that ability, if we don't have it, I don't think these regional or provincial conferences are going to come and utilize the Bradley Center, maybe a new arena facility, if they have to fly to Windsor or Sarnia and then drive to Chatham. Just doesn't make sense. Wouldn't make sense to me. So I think if we can inch closer and closer to creating what could become, a regional airport facilitating commercial air traffic in some form, then I'm all for it. I think as we look towards economic development of the municipality in total, public transit, which airports are part of, that's a key component. It's like rail, it's like access to major highways like the 401. I think air traffic is just as important, not quite as utilized, obviously, but just as important. And we're not going to get there overnight. But as we develop our community and become more of a regional player, I think ignoring the airport or not trying to improve it is a mistake. And this isn't a lot of money. Well, it's a lot of money. Everything's a lot of money. But I think this is money well spent. I think it's a good investment. We're seeing a lot of success. We're seeing a lot of growth in the community. And to neglect an airport, I don't think is the right move. So I'm in total support of this. And I really hope that the other 10 people on council support as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Wright, and then final comments from the mover, Councillor C. McGregor.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Being involved with the airport years ago when I had a plane, spent a lot of time there. But one thing I was really impressed with out there, and it stopped because of the COVID, was the air cadets and the glider program. There was a lot of students out there. They spent a lot of time. It was good for our community. And it was good to see the youth out there getting involved. That's all. Thank you.
Councillor C. McGregor.
Thank you, and through the mayor. Thank you. I appreciate all the other councillors' comments. Hopefully, as Councillor Latimer said, that eventually we can have a little better presentation on the benefits and the utilization of the airport. Fortunately, I still can't support it at this point, because I do think that we should be looking into better ways to utilize maybe the airport. And I'm not quite sure how it needs to be municipally owned. I'm not saying we don't need an airport, because I think it is very beneficial economically. As far as attracting conferences and that kind of thing, until there's a commercial carrier that flies into the Chatham Airport, then those attending conferences or events at the Capitol Theatre or at the Bradley Center will still have to fly into London and then to Windsor, and then commute from there here to Chatham, because it was proven with a public health conference we had a couple of years ago. We had people flying in all across Ontario, and they had to get to London or Windsor and then transport down here to Chatham, because commercial airlines do not fly into this airport at this point of time. So just my final thoughts, and I appreciate all the conversation, and council's will be as it is. Thanks.
With that, we'll put it to vote.
Council, we're waiting for one more vote, please. All votes are in. Motion passes.
Item 14, community development.
14A, Chatham-Kent Tourism Sector Recovery Support and Experimental Tourism Development. And we have an information report and a presentation, and I'll pass it over to Audrey.
Great, thank you, Judy. Just share my screen. Hopefully you can see that now.
Yes, we can, Audrey.
Great. Thank you, Judy, for confirming. So good evening, Mayor Caniff and members of council. We are delighted this evening to share a tourism update with you. It has been such a really long haul for businesses operating in the tourism and hospitality sector. And of course, these are businesses that add vibrancy to life in Chatham-Kent and make it a great place to live and to visit. So our role in tourism over the past 16 months and for the foreseeable future really is to support the sector and tourism oriented businesses. And we have done that in a number of ways. First of all, we have been featuring Chatham-Kent tourism oriented businesses on our revamped visitck.ca website. We have been doing marketing for the past year and a bit, has been focused on hyperlocal, but as conditions change, we will be moving towards regional, national, and even international promotion as we would typically do. We've been sharing sector and grant information. We have been growing the Safe Travel Stamp to support sector rebound. And we've also been supporting many businesses through experiential tourism development. So we'll just elaborate a little bit on those this evening. Traditionally, our marketing work would be targeted to outside Chatham-Kent with the goal of drawing in visitors and therefore new money into the economy. Over the past year, though, hyperlocal tourism has been a focus, and we shared that with council on a number of occasions there over the past year. As conditions change, though, we will look to that really that hyperlocal focus has been occurring across the length and breadth of the province and beyond. So we're no different in terms of our approach to other communities. Through our visitck.ca website, there are over 150 businesses that are showcased through the CU in CK trip itinerary suggestions alone. And as of today, we have 75 patios across Chatham-Kent are now listed on the website. All of the listings connect directly to the businesses themselves through a link to their website or social media. So we're driving traffic through to those locations. Marketing for this summer 2021, will once again be centered on the CU and CK campaign. It will be local marketing once again, but slowly we will carefully transition to regional and then back into the national and the international markets. Through our Chatham-Kent tourism newsletter, we have been sharing, it's a monthly newsletter, and we share with tourism businesses opportunities to support them, including information on grants. And over the past year, $100,000 in grant funding has been flowed directly to tourism businesses in Chatham-Kent as a result of some of those connections that we've made through tourism. So as we help the tourism sector get ready for recovery and the businesses there, we have been working to support their applications for the Safe Travel Stamp. And the Safe Travel Stamp is a globally recognized stamp from the World Travel and Tourism Council. And when I reported to council back in January this year, we had about 25 businesses were listed. As of today, we have 79 Chatham-Kent businesses with this Safe Travel Stamp. This is a sample of some of them when the report was prepared a few weeks back, but the business is growing. And once again, they are listed on our website and we actively promote those businesses too. Helping tourism operators identify and develop new lines of business is a key part of our tourism master plan. And my colleague Shannon Pava is here to share some updates on that topic.
Thank you, Audrey. So yes, another way that we are supporting tourism-oriented businesses is through experiential tourism development. In the 2015 Tourism Destination Management Plan, it was noted by the consultant that we need to look at a makeshift happen version of tourism that's moving from the supply side of thinking, so just listing those tourism assets as places to go and things to do, to more that demand side of thinking, creating an invitation, crafting and creating experiences. It's another operation and another way that businesses can generate revenue stream. It's all about engaging the senses, each having a specific audience in mind. Next slide. So some, but not all of the experiences that we've been working on have actually culminated from a program called Spark. This Spark program matches the selected candidates with a tourism mentor and also provides them with a source of direct financial support, which does take their new tourism idea to the next level of development. And this keeps in mind that working with a variety of partners, aligning with the plans from, again, that 2015 TDMP or Tourism Development Management Plan to create experiential tourism offerings within Chatham-Kent. We did hold 2 rounds, one in 2020, and we did hold successfully a round in 2021, albeit virtually. These are a Dragon's Den type of presentation, a showdown where 5 finalists from all applicants compete, and then 3 winners actually emerge. So you can see the variety of the partners that we actually work with, and we were successful in doing that again in 2021. Next slide. In 2020, we had our 3 winners. Number 1, the Fresh Connection. This was with Urban Sunset Farms and Crazy 8 Barn out of the Highgate and Ridgetown areas. Unfortunately, immediately after winning Spark, due to the nature of their actual program, COVID-19 did put an immediate halt to their plans, but I'm pleased to report that they are now meeting again and meeting with us as well. Forest bathing or forest connections with Shady Star Forest in the Bothwell area have been working very hard over the last year to put together their plans, and they will be the only registered practicing forest therapist in all of Chatham-Kent. So we are currently working with Dan and Ann Wright on a fall timeline to launch their experience. We've been working with them on experiential tourism courses, mentorship, and supporting plans for on-site pilot test runs as well. Next slide. Most recently, you probably heard of and we're extremely excited about our 3rd winner from 2020, TJ Stables. Awaken Your Spirit, a spirit horse encounter, is now available for purchase. It launched last Monday, and it will be available provincially and nationally, of course, as that COVID-19 restrictions with the timelines prevail. So we do watch those, and we're very cautious about it, but we're excited to announce that, again, we did support them directly with the experiential tourism course and coaching and mentorship. And I have actually spoken to Terry just before council started, excited to announce that since last Monday, 2 bookings have been secured since launching that last Monday. Appendix B does have the experience information. This is a one-of-a-kind experience really in all of Canada at this point with the spirit horses that's taking place within Chatham-Kent. And more importantly, it's been done very respectfully and in consultation with Indigenous Tourism Ontario. Next slide. In 2021, like I said, we did manage to hold Spark again, and it was very successful, albeit it was done virtually, so very different. However, we did have 3 winners come from that as well. Riverside Cabins on the Sydenham from the Crappy Store in Dresden, the Culinary Farm in Thamesville for their on-farm wood-fired kitchen, and in Wallaceburg, a kayak experience with the Downtown Wallaceburg BIA. In Appendix A, you will find Spark testimonials from the various groups that we've been working with. But I want to add that you don't have to be a Spark winner to be coached and create an experience with us at Chatham-Kent Tourism. We're working with many others who have not been in part of Spark. For example, Hat Trick Farms out of Blenheim, we're working on some experiences with them. So we do welcome operators to connect with us to see if this is something that suits them. And final slide. And in closing, we would like everybody to know that we at Chatham-Kent Tourism are here to support all tourism-oriented businesses of Chatham-Kent, and that we can in a variety of ways, as you've just seen, We've encouraged businesses and tourism-oriented businesses to contact us, and we do hope that they will. You can do that via email at cktourism@chatham-kent.ca. And we do encourage everyone to explore CK this summer more than ever. Use that hashtag #CUInCK. And I'm going to add, we can't wait to see you in CK. Thanks.
Thanks. Councillor Kirkwood-White, you had a question?
Not a question, just a comment. I really do want to commend Audrey and Shannon and the entire CK Tourism team for the work that they've been doing in a very challenging environment. I have a number of friends in the tourism business who are very anxious to get back to their business, and it's nice to see that some of the unique things that are happening here in Chatham-Kent. So congratulations to everybody. Great presentation. Thank you.
Thanks for the information report. We'll move to the next item.
14D, Downtown and Main Street Areas Community Improvement Plans, Cafe, Patios, and Display Areas, and Courtyard Application. RJM Holdings Limited, 22 William Street South, Community of Chatham City.
Councillor Harrigan and Councillor Sakachi, can you just move this, please?
Hi, Mayor Caniff. I'm happy to move it, and I also have an additional recommendation.
Okay, do you want to add that in and then we'll look for a seconder?
Yep, I would also add a second recommendation that we implement the Downtown and Main Street Areas CIP cafes, patios, display areas, and courtyards grant program to be funded from the Community Improvement Plan Reserve.
Okay, Councillor Scotch, will you second that?
Yes, I will, Your Worship.
Okay, Councillor Harrigan, the floor is yours as we get up on the.
Thanks. So just while Meredith's bringing it up, I wanted to make a comment that after reading the report and recommendation, which is really exciting for the cafe that's out there on William Street, I'm sure many of us have seen it. The question I had for Ryan and Bruce is how can we expand this to ensure that other businesses all across the community are able to leverage a grant program to invest in more permanent structures like the ones that we're seeing pop up as a result of COVID. Because if we can point to a benefit of the COVID-19 pandemic, I would say the patio culture that's starting to develop in our community is certainly one that hopefully sticks around so that we can continue to enjoy the great weather that we have here in CK. So the question that I just have to help me explain the meaning of recommendation number 2, Mr. Mayor, through you to Bruce or Ryan, would be, can you explain how this additional recommendation allows us to, allows businesses across CK to benefit from a grant program such as this?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. This is Ryan Jocks, Director of Planning Services. By way of background, some of this information is in the report before Council. In late 2019 and early 2020, Municipal Administration developed and Council approved a new community improvement plan that covers all of Chatham-Kent. This is called the Chatham-Kent Community Improvement Plan. At that time, in March of 2020, it was also recommended and approved that 3 community improvement plans that were in existence at the time stopped being implemented, sunsetted, so to speak. This included the Employment Community Improvement Plan, the Commercial Neighborhood Community Improvement Plan, and the Downtown and Main Street Areas Community Improvement Plan. The most popular and impactful elements of those 3 plans, plus some new programs, were brought into the Chatham-Kent CIP is a consolidated and strategic policy document to help assist implementing Chatham-Kent's growth strategy, as well as some high priorities within the Chatham-Kent official plan. At that time, as noted in the report, the cafe and patio program was not adapted and to be applied Chatham-Kent wide. The main reasons for this at the time was that this was not a very well used program over the 16 years that the Downtown Community Improvement Plan was in place. We received 9 applications for this program over those 16 years out of approximately 200 projects that were funded through these programs. And I think about 5 of them were restaurant patios. So it wasn't something that we were seeing a lot of demand for, nor was the opportunity to invest in these opportunities there. So with COVID, that obviously changed, and that's led to this application here. And purposefully, back in March of 2020, the old CIPs were not repealed. They were implemented by bylaws and they were not repealed. And like I said, that was on purpose, so that if in the future there was a need, a public need to bring any of these programs back, it could happen immediately by a direction of council, simply by a motion exactly as Councillor Harrigan put today. And so this is a very practical example of why those previous bylaws weren't appealed. So to answer the question, appreciate the time, Mr. Mayor. This motion will allow the grant program to contribute grant money to permanent patios in defined geographic downtown areas in 13 Chatham-Kent communities. I would say that this covers a good majority of restaurants in the municipality, but not all, as this program, like I said, is applicable to defined geographic areas. But I think it's something that can be implemented starting tomorrow if this motion is approved. In order to bring this type of program across Chatham-Kent to ensure grants for permanent patios, for instance, could be captured or taken advantage of by all businesses, an amendment to the Chatham-Kent CIP is required. So this is a policy document. So an amendment is similar to an official plan amendment where there's public notice, the posting of a proposed bylaw, and the passing of a bylaw by Chatham-Kent Council. That's not what's recommended currently, but if that were to happen, planning staff in consultation with other divisions and the public would create a new program, sort of taking off from what used to be applicable to the downtowns, update it based on current development standards, current zoning and public health measures, for example, and we would bring that back to council for its consideration. Thank you.
Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Actually, Councillor Harrigan's kind of depicted what couple of my questions would be in regards to more of a permanent solutions. So I think that most of my comments have been kind of already expressed. Just wanted to say that I think that you know there's a lot of positives to come out from the current patio situation, and I think that it's going to have a really positive effect moving forward on businesses that so desperately need to continue their expansion. So very supportive of the amendment, and it definitely captures some of my questions that I had for Mr. Jakes. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes.
Item 15, infrastructure and engineering services.
15A, innovation update, infrastructure and engineering services. And this is an information report and a presentation by Thomas Kelly, General Manager of Infrastructure and Engineering Services. Thomas, if you're speaking, are you there?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'm here, and I have my screen is sharing now. Can you see it okay?
Yes, we can, Thomas. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Council, and also to members of the public for us to share some of our innovation updates. I'm Thomas Kelly. I'm the General Manager of Infrastructure and Engineering Services, and tonight I'm joined by 3 of my colleagues who will be speaking specifically on their areas. So maybe it's best to first start with exactly what a definition of innovation is. And the best definition that I've found is innovation is an iteration of small, steady improvements over time. And you've heard us many times talk about continuous improvement, and that's really our philosophy with innovation. With this level of approach and the number of changes that we're making, you're not always going to be successful. But when we compare ourselves to other communities, I feel very strongly that we're definitely one of the leaders, especially in Ontario. And we are moving this community forward. When we look at the asset management plan itself, we have two fundamental drivers. And one is that we want to have a greater return on investment on any of our investments, which will lead to municipal cost savings, because we've talked many times about the gap that exists between what we should have versus what we currently have when it comes to asset management. The other thing in our business is really considering what is the long-term quality of the asset over time. So just a really brief example is if we look at a bridge where option A costs $1 million and it will last for 50 years versus option B, $800,000, and it only lasts for 37 years, one might jump to the conclusion, let's go with the less expensive solution. We'll save $200,000 right out of the gates. The issue for us is that when you look at the cost per year, actually the $1 million solution is actually much cheaper, $20,000 compared to $21,600 per year. And alternatively, if you look at it over 50 years, it's going to cost more, and that doesn't include all of the public inconvenience when we close that bridge. So this is our mindset and our process, the way we look at our investments, and usually less upfront in capital investment is always not the best financial decision or the most functional choice due to this life component. So right now, IES, we use a very methodical engineering type approach, and usually it involves pilot projects, which means we just try one specific technology and we'll try it out, for example, on a piece of road. That way we limit the investment until we're able to prove out the manufacturer's claims. And a lot of times we're dealing with groups who've spent the R&D money. There's definitely positives in their claims, but we really want to check these out under Chatham-Kent climate conditions. Not always do they turn out to be exactly as what the manufacturer has proposed. Some of these ideas, which you'll see in the report to follow, are very complex. They're a lot of times a high upfront cost. And on the other end of the spectrum, we also have others that are quite simple, straightforward, and very low cost upfront. So they're all very exciting to us as an engineering group. And in the end, Appendix A, what we've done is just taken some of the highlights. In your report, you have 62 unique innovations that we've been working on over the past few years, is a complete summary. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague to get into some of these details. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff and members of council. My name is Chris Tieber, Director of Engineering, and I'm here to talk about some of the engineering and transportation innovative products and procedures that we have in place. So starting with the roads, we're utilizing technology called fiber reinforced asphalt and surface treatment. An example of the asphalt is shown on the slides, which has fiber strands added to the asphalt to help reduce rutting, cracking, and increase the life expectancy of the road. We started using this in 2019 and are continuing to use it due to its success observed thus far. Similar for surface treatment or tar and chip, we expect to see the cost savings in the life expectancy. Microsurfing is another maintenance-related technology where we apply a thin layer of emulsion and aggregate to the road surface, really to help provide a protective layer, restricting the moisture intrusion and increasing the longevity of the road. We have trial sections that were applied in 2020, and we are continuing to monitor its performance. Next slide. Next slide. There we go. So continuing with the roads, we have Hot in Place, which is a new innovative technology, which is very environmentally friendly. It utilizes 100% of the existing road and laying it back down with the rejuvenating additives, reducing the need for trucking and new materials shipped onto the site. So we're very hopeful to implement a trial program this year in Blenheim for this particular project, and we will continue to monitor its success for future projects as well. Following with this environmental benefit is our cold in place technology, which utilizes the existing base asphalt in the same way with a new surface layer applied on top. So this technology continues to perform well and has been, and as we have been using it for many years now and seeing significant cost benefits and savings as a result. Moving on to bridges now, we have a strong internal team of engineers and technologists delivering 10 to 15 internal bridge projects per year, which by doing so saves on consulting effort and contract administration. In an effort to extend the life of our bridges, we often core the deck, which allows for improved drainage and reduced corrosion. We also have projects that utilize prefabricated structures, which are structures that are built off-site in a controlled environment, which allows for more design options, a safer construction process, and higher quality final product. This reduces construction timelines and impacts to the surrounding environment as well. With regards to some of our procedures, we utilize direct retention of subconsultants for various design studies and investigations, which bundle multiple sites and multiple projects together under one assignment for cost savings. So this includes geotechnical investigations or hydraulic studies for some of our bridges as examples. For procurement, we always look to bundle multiple bridge projects in close proximity to each other with similar scope in a single tender for construction and engineering services, and also allow for a 2-year construction window to allow for contractors more flexibility in scheduling. This procedure has proven very successful over the years, resulting in a significant cost savings by having more contractors submit bids for a more competitive tendering process. And then lastly, we have a lot of new innovation in our transit world, starting with the rebranding of our own in-house fleet to Ride CK. We also have our new on-demand service, which allows users to request rides either by calling or using our new technology platforms. And we continue to improve on our online payment resources, optimize routing, and accessibility improvements as well. So with that, I will pass this over to my colleague, Tim Dick.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. In conjunction with the earlier comments on bridges, of course, culverts and other structures go right hand in hand with the bridges. So with respect to more of the culvert end of road crossings, we look at structural design optimization with respect to doing those in-house. The goal is to right size all crossings within Chatham-Kent. So that means in some cases, we upsize culvert crossings depending on new flow design criteria, or in some cases we downsize if the structure is over designed. Where possible, we use culvert pipes at all times over concrete structures, and of course, one of the limitations is the cross-sectional area and the upstream flows, which dictate. There oftentimes are upfront capital savings achieved with similar life expectancies. As well, relinings of existing structures are achievable, such as the photo in the bottom right. So the photo in the bottom right exhibits slip lining of a round culvert with a dual high density polyethylene slip lining insert. This benefit is reduced investment, longer life, and no road closure or downtime, and certainly less environmental impact as well as a result. With respect to municipal drainage in the across the municipality, which we all know there's many municipal drains, we've implemented something called two-stage ditching, which is a unique profile, and shown in the photo. It basically is a low flow channel more towards the center of the bottom of the drain, which leaves the haunches of the drain in place. Examples of this, or recent examples that some councillors may be aware of, are Mud Creek in South Chatham, as well as a longer, although it's not a municipal drain, the McGregor Creek diversion channel also has a very pronounced low flow channel at the bottom of it. So the advantages are that, of course, you really reduce the impact on cleanouts with respect to sedimentation. You also increase environmental enhancements with species and so on. It's been a huge tool for us to be able to secure the regulatory permits needed for additional works and so on. You also retain the full flow capacity of the rest of the drain in the event that we receive huge runoff events like we received this past weekend. Fewer cleanouts are also a result, as well as a better supply in our pump station applications. We're able to feed the pumps with much more consistent flow rates to those pump stations. And finally, with respect to fleet services, we're very excited that within the next short while here, next month or so, we'll be making or beginning the move to the new fleet garage. With respect to that, this is the consolidation of 2 locations into one site. That will result in increased employee productivity, especially with respect to the ability to repair vehicles like fire and emergency services vehicles, largely because of lack of space currently, and a facility that houses a large overhead crane such as the one that will be in the new facility. We also were operating 2 facilities with technically 1 supervisor, which can be a problem with respect to access to supervisory support and so on. There's also energy savings in the new building with respect to lighting, such things as lighting upgrades, in-floor heating versus old blast type furnaces. Back, okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Caniff, members of council. Scott Mailing, I'm acting director for Parks, Recs, and Cemeteries. So speaking on some of the programs that we've put into place over the last several years, the water usage reduction measures in pools and arenas across CK, lowering operating costs, water, and electricity. We have low flow water nozzles on much of our equipment. We have automatic water leveling systems in pools, low flow shower heads in arenas, and pools and timers in arena dressing rooms. We have on-demand hot water systems. For heater technology, we have upgrades in pools and arena access across CK. This reduces cost and greenhouse gas emissions. Environmental benefits through installation of water bottle fill stations in arenas and parks are saving thousands of plastic bottles entering the landfill annually. The installation of naturalized areas, hence reducing maintenance costs, increasing pollination points, and we're trying to increase the level of this service more as we go, as appropriate. Energy efficient lighting installed in pools, arenas, and sports fields, which reduces costs of greenhouse gases and increasing security at exterior facilities. Energy efficient HVAC units, 20% reduction in utility costs, reduced greenhouse gases, run times in plants, which increases life cycle. Just a couple of things I would add that from my arena background over the years, we've done a lot of stuff with replacing all our lighting, which was huge electric draws we've changed them a couple of times, but now down to LED lighting in our lobbies and over the ice. We have low east ceilings, which keeps the heat pushed or the cold pushed down towards the ice surface and reducing energy costs, giving you a better ice surface. We have plate and frame chillers. We also accessible playgrounds, what we've done. So we're trying to do to meet many of the objectives of the municipality. Thank you.
Thomas, you're muted.
Thank you. It's Thomas Kelly, the General Manager of Infrastructure and Engineering Services. This presentation was to be done by my Director of Public Works, Ryan Brown, but much to Ryan's, not surprise, but to his good actions, he has just recently celebrated the birth of a daughter. So we gave him the night off tonight, and I'll go through the presentation. So first off, I can't tell you how many complaints we receive on our maintenance holes, and the issue is the expansion and contraction over the winter time. What this does is through frost heaving is that we'll usually have quite a depression within the maintenance hole. And this frustrates no one more than me, to be honest. And so the issue is really in the design of the maintenance hole. And each time we go out, it costs us about $1,000 to repair. And then we know within a few years, we'll have the issue again. So we went out and we searched and found a group with that had a new design called self-leveling. And basically, it's matched to the settlement of the road. So it's linked to the asphalt height. So we will not experience that anymore. Recently, council just approved a trial or the purchase of some 200 earlier this year. So we're very excited about that and think that that's really going to be a benefit to the community. Also, we purchased a gravel road debermer. So one of the problems we have within our gravel roads maintenance is that through travel of cars on roads, is that gravel will push itself out to the edge of the road. What happens then is that as a result, you create a pooling effect and water lies on the road, and water is never good for a road. In fact, drainage is at an absolute premium. So you always want to have about a 2% grade from the center of the road, and that just completely defeats the purpose. So in the old days, we used to have a grader go out, and oftentimes we would lose a lot of that gravel on the side of the road. So the debermer, it's about a $10,000 investment. We have 4 of them now. It's able to really capture all of that gravel on the side of the road and move it back toward the travel portion of the road. The payback on all of these investments was less than 1 year. And finally, we presented to council some innovative dust control solutions. This is one that actually did not work out so well to us, but we're continuing to look to see what other opportunities there are. But it was a new organic-based dust control solution. It was much more expensive than the current sodium brine that we utilize, but we thought we'd get some real performance advantages from it. And this is an example where we tried it, and it didn't work out so well, actually. We didn't get the performance improvements that was advertised, and also would allow us to make this investment in the future. Next is the drag units, and this is an idea that we captured from a neighboring municipality. We did have 1 or 2 drag units within our own portfolio, but it's essentially, if you can imagine, a steel rake, and it's being pulled behind a tractor. So the advantages are, rather than going out and grading the roads with a grader, that we would instead have some interim type fix where we would pull this drag unit behind a tractor. So the advantage is a lot less capital cost, and the tractor can go much faster. So it's almost like a rehab of the road as opposed to a full reconstruction of the road with the grader. And what we found, again, lots of savings. We're seeing some very good improvements, and hopefully increasing the actual quality of the road for drivers. And lastly is the decorative light LED street lighting. So a few years back, council approved LED street lighting for our primary use, which was high pressure sodium. These were located throughout the municipality. We ended up with about a 5-year payback, but at that time, we did not have the technology to utilize it for decorative LED street lighting. So we have that now, and we've incorporated that in Dresden. We have targeting Chatham, downtown Chatham this year, Wallaceburg the following year, and to have the complete Chatham-Kent municipality done at the end of 2025. And this is technology that not only does it last longer, typically a 20-year life compared to about 3 to 5 year life with high pressure sodium, but and as a result, you have much less maintenance. So right now, that's a contracted service to Integris. They are out there much less because of the reliability is much improved. And finally, it uses about 25% of the energy that the high pressure sodium did. So with that is the end of our presentation. We're open to any questions that may exist. Thank you for your time.
Councillor Latimer, followed by Councillor Scotchy.
Thank you, through the mayor. I wanted to applaud Thomas and his team for this presentation. I also wanted to recognize that since I've been on council, I have always been invited and enjoyed learning about at the Lunch and Learns about these new innovative techniques and technologies. I think Thomas has said more than once that my enthusiasm and eagerness to learn about all of this is good, and I encourage all of the counselors to make time and to listen and learn when opportunities to learn more about these innovative processes and technologies becomes available through our timelines or our schedules. Thomas, I did have questions. I sent them ahead, but I really do want to take time to mention them. In your attachment, not in this presentation so much as the appendix you attached to the report, it mentioned the 7 bridges left to divest. And I know that these bridges are currently not funded through the AMP, and that's why they're on this list as idled. But I wonder what the plan was for community engagement and the timeline to manage these bridge divestments is.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as these questions come up, I'm going to turn them over to the directors who are in charge of that area. So we'll turn this one over to Chris. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. Thank you for the question. So yes, as identified in Appendix A, we do have 7 structures that remain on the divestment list. As per council's original approval, they're essentially going to remain idle until we do have full asset management plan funding for all of our structures, all of our bridge structures, to move forward with them. So when the time comes and we do have that funding in place to move forward with bringing these bridges back, then there will be opportunities for of course, brought forward to council with the new divestment plan procedure as well, which was again per council's direction last year, where we'll identify if they meet the criteria for a divestment, and we'll carry forward with the public engagement as required.
Thank you, Chris. I just wondered what the timeline was on that. So we'll wait to hear back from you as they come up. My next question is for, I think, Public Works. I wondered if there were any plans or pilots to consider the right-of-ways to be included as naturalized open spaces with long grass or wildflower seeding and maintenance versus the cutting.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. So in Ryan Brown's absence, I'll maybe start with this one, and maybe Thomas can add something as well. So with respect to our municipal right-of-ways, it's not recommended to do kind of naturalized open spaces. There's visibility challenges that we may have, as well as some potential wildlife issues that have been shared with us from other communities that have this as well. Not particular within their right-of-ways, but there's a few municipalities that have these naturalized areas along their trail routes, and they're having challenges, of course, with the visibility and with the wildlife. So that would be a challenge for us within our right-of-ways. We do currently have 2 pilot projects right now with some naturalization pilot projects that are being administered through Public Works. They're out in the Zone Township area. One's Fairfield and Zone 6, and the other one is Fairfield and Jane. They're old railway lands that we've acquired or that they're now with the municipality, and we have these kind of pilot projects where we're monitoring the success of this naturalization project and to see about implementing in other locations throughout the Chatham-Kent as well.
Thank you, Chris. Would it be fair to say if a constituent were interested in seeing that happen in their area or location, could they contact Public Works or your department directly?
I believe it would be contacting our Public Works department. That's correct. Perfect.
Thank you. My third question, I believe, is for Mr. Dick. I'm really glad you explained what two-stage ditching was, Tim. But I wondered, because of the fact that it does lend itself to more vegetation, less cutting, how is the maintenance plan or strategy to address trees and whatever is along those embankments? How is this communicated to abutting or impacted property owners?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff, and thanks for the question, Councillor Latimer. It's Tim Dick, Director of Drainage Asset Waste Management. Much like we would do in a large majority of our drainage projects, we would communicate with, owners would be invited to on-site meetings. Depending on the various sections of the Drainage Act and the status of the project, we're required in some cases to hold on-site meetings for new type municipal drain projects, but maintenance, not necessarily. But we do it anyway, largely. We don't do it in every single case. Sometimes there's, extenuating circumstances, but for the most part, we have on-site meetings to communicate those types of concerns. And the other issues that we typically run into is communicating with the property owners to mark their tile drains. So they have individual private tiles which come out. It's a huge issue. And when we're cleaning the drain, if the operator can't see the tile drains, if they're not flagged or staked, it's very difficult to see them, and then they get broken, and then there's more cost, and so on and so forth. So those are the types of things that we would communicate at on-site meetings.
Yeah, I can't emphasize that enough. Thanks, Mr. Dick, because I think the more communication there is specifically about this type of maintenance that lends itself to more vegetation, and because a lot of times I find property owners, they look at that and go, "Why aren't they cleaning that drain out?" And then you have the other one say they're cleaning it out too much. So it's just kind of this balance you always have to maintain. So I think that the more communication and the more regular communication we have about that, it'll be better for everybody. My fourth question, I think, is going to go to Thomas. It's with regard to the debermers and the gravel drag units. I do agree they've more than paid for themselves, but I also, again, I want to stress this is the education with the impacted property owners. I can't tell you, well, I'm sure Ryan can tell you, the number of times I've called over the last year or since they've been put into use. Property owners call me and say, all they did was make this mess. And it was because of the timing, right? The debermer goes through, then you have to the grade, and then you have to dust suppressant, and sometimes the weather gets in the way, and so the road can look pretty nasty after that debermer goes through. So again, I would ask, while you got grade A marks from your operators and your supervisors and your managers, did anyone engage the property owners or the public in living on these gravel roads, whether or not they feel the debermer and the gravel drag units are improving the quality of their gravel road?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we do often talk to the property owners. We have not engaged in anything formal. I think what you're suggesting, we leave that decision of the timing, the use of the drag line and the debermer. We really leave that up to the supervisor, who is considered an expert in the field and determining exactly when that work should be done. So it's, as you say, it's scheduling, and we're not always perfect on our scheduling. I fully agree with that. So we'll try to do better. We'll try to engage where we can with members of the public.
I think that'd be helpful. Again, the need for them to understand why our processes are changing, and some of them, they have pretty good ideas. So, and I do appreciate when your supervisors do engage the property owners, and many times they do, and that is appreciated. So I want to say that as well. My last question was with regard to the road patrol calibration tool. I believe Mr. T-Bear is going to answer that question.
No, actually, I am.
Oh,
thank you.
Well,
yep.
Sorry, Mr. Kelly.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just wondered, is the calibration variables, can those be modified or changed according to how we find the prioritization ends up being? So, example, on RoadScan, I'm using RoadScan because I don't know about Road Patrol. It's new software, but I assume it's like the RoadScan program we just have in. I'm questioning the prioritization between roads, and the street scan seems to put a lot more emphasis on the crumbling along the side of the roadway versus the longitudinal cracks. And the longitudinal cracks, of course, very much impact the rideability of that road versus the crumbling of the side of the road. which leads to sometimes lower use roads, or what's perceived as lower use roads, being paved first or have a greater priority over the higher use roads with the longitudinal cracks. So
Okay.
yeah. So do you kind of get where I'm going, Thomas?
So yeah, so actually it's, I think there's two issues here. I'm going to answer the first one, and then I'm going to turn it over
Sure.
to Chris on the second one, because road patrol and road scan are completely two different things. So the
Yeah.
road patrol is, we have minimum maintenance requirements, and we also have the AVL system, which essentially is a GIS system within the vehicle itself. So what we have now is the ability to track every single one of our vehicles that are out on the road, to know exactly where it was going, how fast it was going, and what it was doing at times. And what the road patrol software does, it allows us to automate some of the minimum maintenance requirements that we have to do. So for example, the old way is that a supervisor will drive down a road and he'll make notes. He'll have to pull over many times to make hand notes saying, I traveled here on this segment of road. And he makes the note that I didn't see any type of weather issue, any type of slip issue, or anything like that. What the road patrol software does is it allows us to electronically capture all of that data, the conditions at the time, and saves them much time, because they don't have to stop and start to write it down. We use all of this data for our defense if there ever is an issue, an accident, and hopefully not, but a lawsuit. We now have the data to defend ourselves in court that says we were down this road, these were conditions, this was the amount of snowfall, this is the last time that the plow went down. That's the road patrol software. So that's just automating our current process. I'll turn the next part over to Chris on the road scan questions.
Thank you, Mayor Camp. So yes, Street Scan is a consultant or a contractor that we have come out every 4 years right now to come and rate all of our roads within Chatham-Kent. This is all of our hard surface roads. It doesn't look at any of our gravel roads. It just looks at our tar and chip as well as our asphalt roads, and it utilizes technology on board the actual vehicle. Radar technology, visual technology, cameras in every different angle to measure the rutting and the cracks and the deflections and all of the different both pavement condition index. It gives essentially a PCI rating, which is what we then use to prioritize our roads, of course, based on budget and based on decision trees. So it's the theory of making the right decision at the right time is put into place with the information that's received. Do we apply a maintenance procedure to extend the longevity, or do we go into a full-blown reconstruction or resurfacing of the road? We take those kind of variables into consideration with the information that's received from that street scan every 4 years.
So you don't actually get a priority rating. Like, it wouldn't give you, you're making the judgment. It's not making the judgment, you're trying to tell me.
No, so we also have software that goes along with the street scan with these ratings that come back in, and this software is very intuitive, where we can put in essentially a budget value that's provided through council, and based on our decision trees, based on the road degradations and all the data that we have, and the more ratings that we have, the better decisions we can make as well to prioritize our roads based on the current budget. So it helps us with that prioritization, but of course we still very strongly rely on our cooperation with the Public Works team, and them being out in the field and seeing this. We go out and review the roads. We don't just take the information from this street scan program and from the street scan ratings. We do like to go out and verify it and make sure that it actually does make sense, and that we also look into another thing that we do as well, is we look into the following years to make sure that we're bundling projects as well, to try and maximize cost efficiencies with larger segments of road rather than piecemealing over multiple years.
Thank you for the clarification on both of those programs. Again, I'm interested, maybe not every councillor is, but I would really look forward to an actual presentation on those two different pilots. Short, but nothing beats a visual. And what it looks like in the information that you're getting, especially for us who are out there and getting the comments from the constituents with regard to how it how the priorities are based. So thank you very much again, everyone that put this presentation together and participated, because I think as a council, we need to recognize and applaud innovation, and also acknowledge that not all ideas or processes are going to turn out ideally or as we thought, and not to become disheartened over that, but encourage further investigation and further research. So thanks again, fellows.
You're welcome.
Councillor Sakachi, followed by Councillor C. McGregor.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. My question are going to be a little bit less on the technical aspects. I just wanted to carry over on Councillor Latimer's last point there. And this question is going to be directed to Mr. Teever. So back last year, we experienced some challenges in South Kent in regards to some projects that were postponed that were on the innovation level. Those projects were then supposed to be one of the first targeted projects that were performed this spring. And there's not a day that goes by, and I say that literally, that I don't have somebody asking about the Chatham and John Street projects. So we're now getting into July now, and the projects still have not been started. I just wanted to see an open, if you can let us know and let the community know when we feel those projects that were allocated and approved last year will be.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. So that is our hot in place technology. It's up on the slide right now. We are very hopeful. This was something that was promoted to us a couple of years ago at some of our trade shows and our conventions, with a technology that was actually around a very long time ago. It went away, and now it's had a comeback with some great success stories as well. And we're very eager to get them in for this pilot program in Blenheim. They were supposed to be here last year, but due to COVID related challenges and resources and staffing, a lot of their equipment actually was out in the United States. So to get it over to Canada was a challenge. So they could not complete the contract last year. So we allowed for the extension of the contract into this year. Unfortunately, we are still awaiting confirmation from them to get in here to complete this contract this year. We've sent a letter to them with their intentions to get in here and complete this contract. We're still very hopeful, and we're happy to work with them on hope. And they did acknowledge that we are still their number one priority. We have been in conversation with some other neighboring municipalities that are looking to utilize this service as well, including a very large project they have up in Northern Ontario. And I can confirm that they have not started any of those other projects yet either. So we are still identified as the priority number one once they get moving, but we are still awaiting confirmation from them to when they're going to actually get here and start moving. If this year, if they're not able to, for whatever reason, and again, we're going to continue to stay on top of them and work with them, then we're not going to let it go into 2022. We have had already discussions with our asphalt hot in place, not hot in place, but our hot mix contract, to potentially add these onto their contract as a change order if needed, because we don't want to let these roads go any much longer in the current condition that they're in. So we're hoping it doesn't get to that, but we do have a plan B in place for this year should it come to that.
And if I could add, Mr. Mayor, as well, is that right now the government has announced the border is still closed till July 21st. And we've had this experience with other suppliers as well, where they have U.S. operations. Even if they could get across the border, then they would have to go in isolation for 14 days. So it's strictly not practical for them at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly and Mr. Teever, and I definitely appreciate that, and I appreciate Mr. Teever indicating that they'll be working with the contract. But additionally, and I say this with all due respect, it's not practical for a road in that condition to be waived for yet another year. So I'm happy to hear from Mr. Teever that for sure it will be done prior to next year. And I respect that when we're doing innovation work and different products, that sometimes there may be a delay, but it's also important that the council's approved projects are done and completed in a timely fashion. And if this doesn't get completed this year, it's going to be now 2 years essentially that's been delayed. So thank you for that, and thank you for the time, Mayor Caniff.
Councillor C. McGregor.
Thank you, and through the mayor, thank you very much for the report. It is very detailed and very good. I just had one question, and in the actual report, not the presentation, but in the report, it mentions under consultation that a draft copy of the report had been shared with members of the infrastructure committee. I sit on that committee, so I haven't heard anything since May, and wondering if I got off the mailing list. Though I do think it is an excellent report, and especially since we have 3 new members on this committee, that this would be a very good presentation to bring forth if we have another meeting at any point.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we did go forward to the Innovation Committee this year and presented the report and asked for any other ideas that they may have. And that's what we were referring to. We gave them a draft copy. We emailed out the draft copy as well to all members. So I'd be happy to present that again. But that's why we made that statement in the consultation.
Okay, I went through my notes. I couldn't find a copy of this report. Maybe it just wasn't in the detail that you had today, but I think it would be a really great report especially to help those new on our committee understand just the depth of the work that you do in your department.
Thank you. We'll be sure to send that out. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for the information report. We'll move on to the next item.
Next item is 15B, options for assisting with the relaunching of youth sports field activities.
Councillor B. McGregor and Councillor Latimer, can I get you on the floor, please?
Happy to move it.
Happy to second.
Councillor Latimer, you had a question?
Councillor Latimer, you're muted.
Sorry, I apologize. I was just noticing in the notes the follow-up regarding Chatham Tennis Association and the Southwest United FC comments. They wanted further discussion, and I wondered if these folks could be put in contact with the downtown Chatham and Navistar property developers, because as the developers have requested community feedback regarding what services or recreational opportunities or type of housing and retail the public want to see made available to our local residents. So I thought that might be a nice a link up there.
Mr. Mayor, I thought my colleague Scott was going to answer this question.
I'm in it. Can you hear me now, Thomas?
Yep, go ahead.
Sorry about that. I had a hard time getting off the mute. Yes, as the article said, there's going to be information asked from the community on this. So we would certainly make sure that's put forward when that survey does come out, and we could get the proper contacts and get them in touch, or anybody that may have interest in that site, either one of the sites.
Well, it's just they just want ideas, Scott. So I would encourage you just to put the all the 3 parties in touch with each other, and they'll take it from there.
We'll
Thank you.
certainly do that, Councillor Latimer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Scotchy.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. Just a very quick question. I noticed that in the sports field minor fee of $10.65, when we're talking about our winter sports, Mr. Kelly, is all those fees associated just essentially built into the user fees, the hourly rate? So none of our figure skaters or hockey players, like none of those players have any fees that are associated with that. It's all built into the user rate. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Scott, would you like to answer that? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, it's just going to be the $2 reduction for any minor sports user, Councillor Scotchy, just to try to assist a little bit in their programming to make up for some lost time.
If I could add as well, though, Councillor Foss put together a motion a couple of weeks ago extending that reduction. So that reduction was approximately a 15%, depending on the category, reduction of all of our arena fees. Correct. So that we did not consider providing more to that group of arena users, because we felt that they had already received the reduction, and this was more or less for sports fields only.
Okay, I just wanted clarification. I'm aware of the motion that we passed recently. I just wanted to see if that has been taken into consideration with the reducial and the holding the ice fees. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in, motion passes. Moving on to 15D, proposal for construction of pickleball courts, Community of Erio.
Councillor Sakatchi and Councillor Harrigan, can I get you to move this, please?
Happy to move it, Mayor Caniff.
And I will second.
And Councillor Sakatchi, followed by Councillor Harrigan for questions.
No question, just a really brief comment, Mayor Caniff. I just wanted to thank the ECA for all the hard work that they've put in so far to this. It's been a lot of legwork, and as Mr. Hoovelman said during a deputation, this group has been very successful with a lot of projects in a municipality, and all three local councillors have been very lucky to be part of a lot of the conversations to see all the hard work that they can keep conducting in this area, and just wanted to make sure that that was acknowledged. Thank you.
Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. My question, I believe, is to Mr. Kelly or members of his team. I too think that this is a great initiative representing community and municipal partnership. My question is, can you share if other communities are interested in infrastructure, particularly something like pickleball? Is this the same process that they would undertake, or do you have any comment about the process used?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So first of all, this is very positive, certainly in the work that we're doing with the Erio Community Association. And it's a good one to look at, but if you look at some of the costs to the municipality and under the financial implications, first we did an environmental test that we paid for, and as well, all of the program management is being done by the municipality, and together those total about $12,000. So if I were to look at an ideal process, we did a project, for example, in Dresden, where our role was to look at the final design and then approve the final design, and the community actually managed the project. So that would even be a greater improvement. As well, we have a fountain, for example, in Chatham, where the Prairie Molima fountain, where the community has also set up a fund to help offset some of the operational and life cycle costs. That would be another opportunity for an improvement, I guess, as far as this project goes. And, we're looking at about $9,700 for both of those items for this particular 2 courts. So it's a really good project, and it's great that the community is able to do the legwork in the beginning. But we have other projects too that, helped us even further by, first of all, managing the project, and secondly, establishing a fund year over year to help offset the ongoing costs, and that would even be better from a municipality standpoint. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Mr. Kelly. I just wanted quickly, Mayor Caniff, to comment that I think that this is a really good investment in infrastructure in a community that is lacking. I've also seen some great repurposing in the, a recent park upgrades report that we received. There's going to be some painted pickleball lines in the tennis courts in Wheatley as an example. So good opportunities to kind of partner in response to community requests 3 different ways. So
Who's with that tablets?
Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff.
That's the tab. I don't know where the cord is.
Okay.
If you need a cord, you can grab the one off of the phone over there.
Councillor Thompson, I think you're not muted.
My apologies.
No worries. Thank you.
No, that's okay. That added to the conversation. It's good for sure. Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I'm very happy to support this initiative. I was at the Laverne Kelly Park yesterday. Nice sunny hot day. Erio, very vibrant, happening community. This will be a great add to the park and to the community. And as a tennis player who's old and not very good, I play with a lot of guys that do play pickleball. And it's the biggest growing sport, racket sport anyway. I don't know if it's the biggest growing sport, but it's got an incredible following. So, to do this really we're ahead of the curve. We're converting tennis courts. I think they're called the John Carpenter courts at McGregor High School. They've been repainted with the pickleball lines. The ones at Tecumseh, which is where I play, the Chatham Tennis Club, have not been repainted. But a lot of the people that play there are playing pickleballs, and tennis. So there's a big crossover there. So to create this in Erio, it's a perfect fit. Not that Erio is a retirement community, but maybe kind of in a way it is. So to have this there and to create this opportunity to encourage people to engage in a sport, a racket sport, which is available to everybody. People can play racket sports from the time they're 4 until they're 94. It's a great move, and I support it 100%. And I'm looking forward to playing pickleball, hopefully much later in life. But for now, I'll stick to tennis. But it's a great move, and I support the motion 100%. Thank you very much, Mayor Caniff.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
And we're looking for one more. Okay, all votes are in and motion passes. Moving on to 15H, increased service levels, trails, parks, and open spaces.
Councillor Harrigan and Councillor Scott, you can each move this, please.
So moved.
Seconded, Mayor Caniff.
Okay, Councillor Harrigan, followed by Councillor Scotchy.
Thanks, Mayor Caniff. Thomas, I just have a question about the chart that was outlined in the financial implications on the chart. For my own clarity, the row that's related to trails makes reference to labor, like an additional labor position, whereas the row of special events references like a 6-month contract. So can you explain to me if both of those are referring to increased resources, or if the labor, when there's reference kind of to labor cost, if those budgets are in there kind of assuming overtime or something versus, what are the financial assumptions there?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'll start with the simpler one, and that's the special events coordinator that we've added, or we'd like to add, is that due to COVID, every single request we get for a special event is unique now, and it's not the cookie cutter approach that it used to be. And we're also concerned that the province is going to open up very quickly, and we'll have to react very quickly. So we are highly recommending that we move forward and support that. We have somebody in place now, but the term of that contract is not established. So that is an incremental hire of a position we do not have internally right now. When it comes to the parks and the beaches, the labor we're talking about is both internal and external. Internally, it's adding additional hours to some of our part-time staff. It's adding overtime to our full-time staff. And also there's 2 students in there as well to help with the pickup. So what's linked to this one is the very first item is the garbage receptacles. And we fully 100% agree we need to increase the frequency of our garbage pickup. I've been out at our parks and some of our beaches, and they're overflowing. So what we're asking for is more receptacles, and some of those Alpha Max units, those are the big green units that we see. That type of work is externally sourced. So the parks and beaches, the 121,000 includes external labor to pick up all of the garbage. It also includes internal labor, overtime using existing resources, and increasing hours, but also 2 students in there, as well as some of the, we have a vehicle in there as well.
Thank you. That clarifies. So there is added budgeted labor costs in the term of turning part-time hours into full-time hours or incurred overtime. Thank you for clarifying that for me. Those are all my questions, Mayor Caniff.
Councillor Sakachi, followed by Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff, and through yourself to Mr. Quinton. I just wanted to touch base, Mr. Quinton, in regards to the funding that coming from the Safe Start the Safe Restart funding. So there's still ample funding available there to ensure that we can cover that additional expense of the $318,000.49.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Councillor Sakachi, it's a crystal ball of what's going to happen with COVID for the rest of the year. It sort of has to do with what the answer might be as far as do we have enough? But as the current public health outlook with reduced numbers of cases COVID-19 and higher vaccination rates, we're hopeful that the fall gets. I believe some of the sports, minor sports, gets happening shortly, and we're into a hopefully more of a regular fall, and so that there's not going to be as much a draw on our general COVID-19 funds that we've gotten from both the federal and provincial governments. So the quick answer is yes. I believe we have sufficient funding. I would also add that across the province, the lobbying for additional funds for the second half of 2021 is continuing, and we are hopeful that there will be new announcements of funding, hopefully with not too much restrictions on when they can be used, because we're not wanting to have something where it had to be spent by the end of the year, but not announced till October, right? So that'll be interesting as well as whether we get a 1 or 2 million more announcements in the fall. But as of right now, we think we're good.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Quinton. And I know that the last meeting I did retract the motion, but this is exactly what I was looking for when I initially put the motion forward. Mr. Kelly's kind of indicated my points that I made from last meeting is that the community in regards to trails, open spaces, parks, since COVID has really ramped up, and it's very beneficial. But I think all councillors have probably been hearing those concerns in regards to additional garbage, takeout containers left everywhere, the trails, porta johns, all those aspects. I know this is a substantial amount of funds. And I also know that, when we're talking about positions, it's something that, as council and staff, we never take lightly. But I really do think that this is a very, good expenditure to keep the stuff that we are utilizing very, upkept and proper. And I think that the additional of the receptacles will be a benefit to our community, and I'm very supportive of this. And I just wanted to thank the team for putting this report in such a short period of time. I know that you were dealing with some emergencies and things were very busy. So I just really wanted to say thank you. And I do hope that council supports this initiative. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
There, get a chance to speak when I was actually planning on it. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I get a chance to go to a lot of the parks these days through my other job, and I know that it's a lot of hard work, and it has been a lot of hard work for all the residents, for all the staff members rather, and residents really have been using the parks a fair bit more, the trails as well. This is specifically just for 2021, is it not?
Mr. Mayor, it's Thomas Kelly, the General Manager of IAS, and that is correct. But in the report, I would recommend, or I guess in the next 2022 deliberation, if we continue at this rate, you would see something similar in the 2022 budget as an ask for council consideration. Thank you.
That's kind of what I was driving at. I think most every councillor has to deal with these requests for more garbage receptacles, more emptying and more maintaining as well, the porta johns too. So I think going forward, this could very well be a new normal for what we have to deal with within the municipality. Are the I guess the permanent washrooms, are they opening up across the board?
Mr. Mayor, I'd have to check on that. My colleague's on the line. He may know. At this time, what we are finding overall is that the porta-johns are much easier to manage because with the permanent washrooms, there's much more labor required to clean them and to do so on a regular basis. Scott, are you on the line? If you could provide some insight there, please.
Yep, I'm on here, Thomas. Yes, Councillor Thompson, they are open now. The beach washrooms and any other washrooms, they are open. The restrictions are on the change room part of them. And I believe I just heard from the health unit on the 30th, they're going to be relaxing that to a point where you could use a change room as long as you have the social distance aspect. So that would fully open everything.
Okay, I guess just my final question, and actually this is just my experience out at Mitchell's Bay of all places. I noticed they took the 2 porta-johns out of the Mitchell's Bay Park there by the splash pad. And that's when I recognized the bathroom actually opened up there in Mitchell's Bay. So I was wondering what the plan is. Are in that one in particular, or all of them, are we looking at kind of a hybrid model where we'll have both the permanent washrooms open as well as additional porta-johns?
I think at this point, it's just mostly the washrooms themselves. I know in Ariel, the porta-johns have been removed. They are problematic, Councillor Thompson. They, as you know, they get knocked over and they really get messy. From a hygiene perspective, it's not the greatest situation, but it's what we had at the time. But now with the washrooms open and assuming they are large enough to adequately handle the crowds, plus with extra cleaning, then I think the thought would be no, that we wouldn't be using the porta-johns unless it's a special occasion or something.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks. I just want to add that this is some really good news just from a public use perspective. It's great seeing everybody get out using the parks and trails and everything. And I look forward to next year having to deal with this issue and that we have continued use of those facilities increased. So that's great news. And Councillor Harrigan, I was just wondering if the councillor in training has any questions.
No, she's good, but she promises to be quiet.
With that, if there's no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
Just waiting for one more, councillors. Okay, all votes are in. Motion passes. Moving on. Oops, sorry,
item 16, Community Human Services.
Sorry. 16A, Grow Your Own Health Support Worker, Personal Support Worker Program.
Councillor Kirkwood White and Councillor Latimer, can I get you put on the floor, please?
So moved.
So seconded.
Okay, Councillor Kirkwood White, the floor is yours, followed by Councillor Latimer.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Looking at the report and understanding that we are just learning about this, understand that the paperwork had to be signed by March 31st, or that would have jeopardized Employment and Social Services from receiving the funding and delivering the program. And it's no secret that we have a shortage of personal support workers. I've been participating in a number of corporate visits with the Economic Development Department, together with long-term care facilities and retirement homes. And that is the number one challenge that these facilities are facing. So I move the motion and trust that we'll have support from the rest of council for it.
Councillor Latimer.
Yes, I just had a question for Mr. Keach, and I think he's on. I was looking at the report too, and it says the opportunity to train up 192 students. And Mr. Keach has already clarified with me that we have 54 students locally enrolled. And I was looking at, or I guess 44 total, but there's 19 Chatham-Kent students enrolled from 10 employers. And I was looking at the list of employers and I noticed that Riverview Gardens wasn't one of them. And I wondered if you could respond why.
This is Matt Keach, Program Manager with Employment and Social Services. Thank you, Mayor Caniff, and thank you, Councillor Latimer, for the question. I can confirm that Riverview Gardens has reserved spaces in the second cohort, which starts on August the 16th. They anticipate to be hosting between 5 and 10 students. And I should also mention that they have previously participated with us as a host employer when we've run this program outside of ministry funding.
And it was 6 to 8 students that were a result of that program, Mr. Keach?
So prior to receiving this funding, between November of 2019 and February 2021, in Chatham-Kent, we actually had 42 participants, 24 of which were connected to the Ontario Works program.
Alrighty, and I know we have some of those graduates working at Riverview Gardens now, correct?
Correct. From our previous programs, we do have
Yes.
Have graduates working at Riverview Gardens. Yes.
Thank you for confirming that we did have students that were, would be currently employed through Riverview Gardens. Our own long-term care facility is not exempt from this problem, which is far-reaching beyond Ontario and across Canada. So every opportunity we have to receive funding to further train personal support workers is an investment in our future, because I don't see this need going anywhere anytime soon. In fact, it's going to be an even greater need as the greater proportion of our population hits their 80s. So thank you very much for your report, and God bless all of those personal support workers out there. Thank you for all you do for our seniors in the community.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
A couple more, Council.
Madam Chair, Councillor Sakachi, I for some reason I'm not able to vote in this item. It's not allowing me to submit.
Okay, Councillor Sakachi, how would you like to vote on this one?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. All votes are in and motion passes. Moving on to 16C, Tilbury Manor Nursing Home update.
Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. I'd like to make a recommendation on the receipt of this report that administration endeavor to work with the Ministry of Long-Term Care, the current owner of Tilbury Manor, prospective buyers and/or redevelopers, and any other required parties to ensure readiness in the event that the ministry announces new long-term care bed allocations and subsequent calls for proposals. This work must focus on community and the importance of ensuring adequate access to rural healthcare for older adults in Chatham-Kent.
Councillor O'Shea, you second that?
I do. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Harrigan.
Thanks, Mayor Kenneth. I want to give a shout out to Councillor Latimer for the work and advocacy that she also endeavored in assisting myself and the support from April in moving this recommendation. For those of us, if you read the report, or for members of the public, it's seeming quite clear that there's been a trajectory or a series of announcements around some shifts in bed allocations that, to be completely honest and frank, doesn't really bode well for the residents of the community of Tilbury, who are losing a long-term care home in their community that is, walking distance from where their loved ones are living. And so while there is still consultation in progress, what this recommendation does is it really directs staff to be prepared for the loss of that long-term care home, and to think about what we could potentially do in attracting other partners to the table to ensure that our seniors have good care. Now, I know that the motion is up right now, but I did also want to publicly share, while I have the floor, that there is still time to provide feedback, that the email and written submissions are still open until July the 4th. And I think Meredith is going to share the consultation process. There we go. Thank you. So given the timing, you need to send the mail quickly, but I really would urge councillors individually to think about sending an email to the LTC Homes Licensing at ontario.ca to emphasize the importance of rural health and access to long-term care services. I know our staff have been representing the community or the municipality in some of those consultation process, and I really do appreciate that. But I think this is a time when we really need to share our voice, when maybe a benefit to the region sometimes comes at a detriment to a single community. Now, a question that I just have for April or Stuart, could you share with us maybe some of what the tactical strategies could look like in, working with these partners, or how we might think about potentially finding a long-term care provider who may come to the table to look at what this opportunity might be, should this proposal go through?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's April Reitag, General Manager, Community Human Services. Are you okay, Mr. Mayor, if I take this question?
Certainly.
Thank you. What I think we will, I'll step back and say we do need to realize that we have a couple of years really before Tilbury Manor will close and move to that Bell River location. What this does provide us is the opportunity to kind of come together as a community and to work with the current owners of the facility. And we are just really at the beginning stages of that. So we'll have to have a meeting, certainly between, I'm thinking economic development, probably my connections with the ministry, with the current owners, and look at what their intentions are. Certainly with me so far, they are quite interested in working with the community and looking at what might be able to happen at the Tilbury Manor site. It is an old building that will require some work to bring it up to long-term care kind of new codes that are coming into place when we look at renovations. And I think the opportunity is there to explore any number of things to make sure that that building is used in an appropriate way to support our seniors. What I do think we have to be very clear with the community is that it is really up to the provincial government in terms of the assigning of long-term care beds. What we hope to do is to find someone that would like to be ready to apply for those beds in the event that that application process is opened up by the government. And so we'll work to do that. And I too encourage folks to write into the ministry really with support for rural healthcare. That's probably the most important thing that I have learned really over the last couple of weeks is this is a loss to rural healthcare for those residents and families in Tilbury. So I hope that helps, Councillor Harrigan. Like I said, we're really at the beginning of this.
Yes, thank you very much, April. It does help. And also thank you for mentioning the potential timeline. I know there are some families and care providers who are wondering for planning purposes what the timeline could look like. So thank you for that. Those are all my questions, Mayor Caniff, and I appreciate the sharing of this information for the response.
Councillor Latimer.
Yes, through the mayor, I'd like to say thank you, April, for participating in the information session this past Monday, the 21st, that the ministry held, and for reminding them that Chatham-Kent very much sees this as a hit to adequate access for rural health care for Chatham-Kent, especially our citizens in the western part of our municipality. I did want to clarify, you are still submitting a written submission by July 4th from the municipality, correct?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Yes, that's correct. Councillor Latimer will pull a letter together that will have the components very similar to this report, with some of our concerns around that loss of beds to our community. So we'll be submitting that letter.
Thank you. And I also encourage every public resident and all of our councillors to write your letter, again, advocating for continued adequate access to rural health care for all Chatham-Kent residents. Thank you.
Councillor Oche, did you have a question?
I have a comment, Your Worship, if you don't mind.
Sure, certainly. Go ahead.
Okay. First, I'd like to thank April for all the work she's done, but I would like to also thank everyone that have sent letters in. We've received quite a few, but I want to state one thing that I got a message the other night, and they thought council was voting on to close it, and we have no control over this other than to ourselves write letters and ask to keep Silver Manor open. So I'm hoping many people will still write in as all the people that have already, and thank everyone that does, and Claire and I'm sorry, Councillor Latimer and Councillor Harrigan and April, thank you for everything that we've worked on. I believe I'm not sure what it will do if help wise, but I certainly hope it does. Thanks again.
Councillor Crew, did you have a comment? I saw your hand pop up there.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Meredith to send this information to all of council, because this is a slide, but I see that she's already sent it to me anyway. So.
All right. See no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
Sorry, Madam Clerk, it's Councillor Sakachi. I'm able to submit my vote again on this one.
Okay, perfect. Then we're waiting for one more.
And I am a yes.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. I thought you said you could. Sorry about that. So all votes are in and motion passes. 16D, motion of Councillor Finn, opioid crisis.
Councillor Finn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. After receiving the correspondence package, I'd like to withdraw my motion as written and instead propose one to read that council approve a letter of support be sent to the Ontario Big City Mayors, call for action as presented in our correspondent package, to call for the decriminalization of controlled substances for personal use and recognize that there is an opiate crisis, and also to address and improve mental health, addiction, and harm reduction services and supports. But I like that better.
Okay, can we get a seconder for that? Councillor Crew?
I would be happy to second that.
Okay, Councillor Finn, you want to make any other comments? I see there's a few people that have some questions.
Just, I'm sure everybody has realized from the letters that have been sent out, decriminalization doesn't make it legal. I know I've been questioned many times over the weekend. It's still illegal to possess, but the criminal legal system would not prosecute under certain amounts of the stuff. So it allows the service or the officers, if they are dealing with it, to give, it can send them to diversion programs and stuff like that. So I think it's something that is definitely needed all across the board.
Okay, Councillor McGregor, followed by Councillor Bondy.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Certainly appreciate the initial motion and this one as well. And I think that it's, we're joining what's really a growing call for decriminalization. And, it was back in 2018 that the Board of Health in Chatham-Kent and the Medical Officer of Health supported decriminalization. So I think it's a great step that we're taking. As part of Councillor Finn's initial motion, she did have a request for Community and Human Services to return with a report about the opioid crisis and municipal action and sort of community follow-up. And I wonder if we could include that in this motion, because I would like to see an update or at least the timeline for an update coming back to council with a report, especially considering in public health around COVID-19 and how that may have impacted some service delivery and roles within harm reduction. So I think that if it's friendly to Councillor Finn, I'd like that request for report back to be included in the motion.
Councillor Finn, are you good with that?
I'm happy to put that one on.
And Councillor Crew, you okay as well? Okay. Okay, so Councillor Bondy, followed by Councillor Crew, then Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. Maybe just some clarity on the whole idea of decriminalization. Now, I don't know if there's anybody here that can really speak to this, but I would assume decriminalization would be if somebody is caught with an opioid, that they would not be arrested and prosecuted under the criminal justice system, but they would be treated similarly to a speeding ticket. So it's still not legal, but it doesn't go into the criminal justice system. So that's my interpretation of what was proposed as cannabis laws years ago. So maybe somebody could clear that up for me. But before we get there, I would like to say what I don't really get is if we, and we're not going to do anything because the municipality of Chatham-Kent is certainly not going to decriminalize anything. Like, we can write a letter like we do for lots of different things, and that's nice. And I appreciate Councillor Finn's spirit of this, but obviously we're not going to do this. But if we do support this, does this lead us into the same path of legalization, which is what we have now with cannabis? And so cannabis is now, obviously we all know there's got to be, I try and keep count, like 8 or 9 cannabis stores in Chatham, just the city of Chatham. So if we go down this path, and this is what I'm fearful of, if we go down the path of first decriminalization, which, could potentially lead to legalization, then do we allow for the legalization of retail sale of opioids? I don't think that's the intention, and I'm sure it's not, but that's my concern, is if we decriminalize any substance, are we leading ourselves down that path of allowing more accessibility to these drugs? And I don't know. And frankly, I don't have a solid opinion because I'm not educated enough on this issue to know. But if we make opioids more accessible to anybody and everybody, does that allow for more accessibility. Obviously, that would. So that's my concern with this is, by promoting decriminalization. Obviously, again, we're not going to be able to do that. Where does that send us down the road? And I'm not sure because, I live in the downtown core of Chatham and I see a lot of this, I see a lot of the problems and I have young children and yeah, it's a concern and it's a problem. Obviously, Councillor Finn, as a, former police officer, has a much greater experience than I do dealing with this stuff. But by allowing more accessibility, where are we going? I just don't know. And really, frankly, Mayor Ken, if you would allow Councillor Finn to respond to me, I would appreciate that. Or Councillor Crew, or anybody else. Because I'm just concerned about that.
I was going to have Mr. Shropshire respond to that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. So this might be something that we would like to invite Dr. Colby back to provide a more fulsome answer, but the Board of Health, in considering the recommendation to support decriminalization, did have the benefit of a number of studies around the world. One example is Portugal, who several years ago took the step to decriminalize a number of drugs, and their response has been terrific. There has not been an increase in the use of drugs. In fact, there's been a decrease, and there's also been a whole lot of positive social outcomes. So I think the Board of Health had that information in their hands when they actually considered supporting Dr. Colby's recommendation. I know there's a number of people here that are on the Board of Health and they might be able to offer some additional information, but I know that was, having talked to Dr. Colby about this, that was one of the things that he shared with me. And again, I think there could be a more fulsome response back to council to share that, but there's no evidence. My understanding is there's no evidence to suggest that the decriminalization element leads to increased utilization.
Councillor B. McGregor, did you want to comment from the Board of Health perspective?
Sure. And Don was accurate. When the Board of Health supported that in 2018, it was based on a report to the Toronto Board of Health, actually, and a recommendation as well from Dr. Colby. And the Portugal example was one of the sort of the case studies used to support that. And there's been a significant movement in Canada and in Ontario towards decriminalization, and sort of, as Councillor Bonnie mentioned, is concerned not with the intent of the cannabis model of then retail sales by any means, but it's to move addiction issues to a health issue instead of a crime issue. So just changing the overall focus of how we start to address the issue, and there's been some real success in places that have done this, and that's why particularly, communities like Vancouver and Toronto have been leading the push in this direction. And as we see in our community, we're seeing the issue here as well. So I think that's why we made that decision on the Board of Health, and why Councillor Finn brought it to council as well.
And Councillor Bondi, did you have anything further, any other questions?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. My concern is not necessarily the legal aspect of decriminalization and where it goes in the courts and that, that aspect, because that's important, of course, obviously, as I think addiction, drug usage is very problematic for the courts and for the justice system and for our Chatham-Kent Police Services. Obviously, I think you had mentioned, Mayor Ken, if I heard you on CBC, you sounded very nice on the radio, that 80% of 80% maybe of our police services calls are related to some sort of addiction services, whether it be domestics, but it's a big problem. My concern is that if we go down the road of decriminalization of effectively all personal use drugs, that's not really where I'm concerned. I'm concerned about then where does the source come from? Is the source now legalized? Because if holding opioids like perks or whatever, what about the person that provides the perks? Like, where does that leave the justice system? If personal possession is legal, the person providing because you can't grow perks. Like it's not cannabis, it's not marijuana. So that's really my concern. And again, this is just a letter that we're sending in support of, but I think the question is legitimate. That cannabis is a little bit different because you can grow cannabis in your backyard, and it grows. It's a plant. It's a weed, basically. Well, effectively, it is a weed. But if we promote the legalization of opioids, which are only derived, I think, particularly from prescriptions, then where does that put the provider of these things? So there's where I have a little bit of difficulty. So if somebody wants to chime in on
Councillor
that.
Bondi, the premise is that if they're a dealer of drugs, it would still be legal for them. They would still be charged for all of that. It's just if you get caught and you have a small amount on you for personal use, they're not going to throw you in jail. They're going to try and help you medically. That's what effectively this is doing. It doesn't make any of that other legal. That is still as legal as it was last year, moving forward on that basis. So it's just dealing with as people already said, moving it to a medical issue versus a criminal issue.
Well, and thank you, Mayor Kenneth. But I guess I'd have to question the idea that if I get caught with some opioids, the guy that gave it to me, or girl, they're going to be prosecuted, but I'm not. So I just see a disconnect between what we're asking to have done here. Like, I'm okay to possess it, but the guy that gave it to me, he's going to face the full throttle of the justice system.
Yes.
Don't we find a little disconnect there that it's okay for, if I have a banana, that's fine, but the guy that gave me the banana is going to be like, I don't know. I see a little break in where the justice system or where the police are going to go. Like, it's okay. So the police catch a guy with a bunch of like drugs and he hands them to me and I say, oh, personal use. So that's legal. But the guy that just gave it to me, I don't have to go on about this. I think you get
Councillor Bondi, I think we're getting a lot of semantics as far as that goes. We're looking for there, and certainly that will be dealt with in some other future. I've got lots of hands up here. I will.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you giving me that time. Thank you, Mary Kenneth.
Okay, I'll go to Councillor Crew, then Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Part of the presentation that comes back, I hope would have some educational components about decriminalization and legalization. They're two different things. And I think that it's hard for a lot of people to understand that. And we need to be really good with the educational component. I am the coordinator for the Chatham-Kent Drug Awareness Council, and we support this. There's a lot of barriers to service, which contributes to people dying, which some of it is they're afraid to call for help if they have the drugs on them, or they may be charged, or any of those things. And we need to remove those barriers. But the other thing is that we can't move to decriminalize for personal use without having it go hand in hand with increased money from the government for treatment, for interventions, for harm reduction, and for education for our community. We as a community cannot arrest our way out of the current state with drugs and mental health and addictions and all of those things that are really so visible now. They've always been there, but it's getting worse with the fentanyl, and people are taking things that they don't know what they're taking. They are addicted to these substances, so they take the risks. And if we can decriminalize it, we can probably get them better educated with safe supply, making sure that that the people are getting the services and the help that they need. And it's not just about making it easy for people to get drugs, because that's not what it's about. It's making it easier for them to stay alive, making it easier for them to access services, and like I said, we need to really lobby hard to get increased funding for mental health and addictions in our country. I think that's all I have for this rant. Thank you. I will be supporting Councillor Finn's motion.
Councillor Hall, followed by Councillor Kirkwood-White.
Thank you very much, Mayor Caniff. And just sending out some thank yous as well, particularly to the people that provided deputations tonight. In particular, the resident with lived experience. I thought that was, very raw and very heartfelt and very emotional. But I think it's very important to hear those stories in the community. Also, Councillor Crew also touched on it about the Drug Awareness Council. I'm a part of that group as well. And we had a very passionate discussion at our meeting on Friday about Councillor Finn's motion. And as Councillor Crew said, the group was supportive of it. But definitely there was a lot of discussion. But I think the sentiment from the group was that more conversation and more education, which has been alluded to tonight, in the community is necessary. I'd also like to thank Councillor Barack McGregor for adding back in the presentation piece to Councillor Finn's motion. I was looking forward to that, and I think that's a good amendment. And lastly, thanks to Councillor Finn for bringing her original motion and her new motion tonight. It has sparked a lot of conversation in the community, a lot of relevant conversation in the community, and is really speaks to the need that more conversations and more education across the community about this is needed. So thank you, and definitely happy to support this tonight. Thanks, Mayor Canna.
Councillor Kirkwood-White, followed by Councillor Latimer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had alerted the clerk over the weekend that I would be happy to second Councillor Finn's motion. I wasn't aware until tonight that the motion was changed. I had some comments that I would have made that others have already made now, so I won't repeat those. But for me, what's important in this particular motion and for the Ontario Big City Mayor's work is that we scale up prevention, harm reduction, and treatment services. And that means meeting people where they are and removing stigma. We have a lot of work to do in this community to remove stigma. Lots of education ahead of us with the diversity, equity, and inclusion work. And I look forward to learning more as we proceed. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Latimer.
I just like to echo what Councillor Kirkwood-White just said, but I also want to say, by increasing the access to services and education, you decrease the need for the dealers and effectively put them out of business. If you eliminate the demand, you decrease the supply in business. So I think that kind of answers Councillor Bondi's concerns right there. As a mother of a police officer out there, I can tell you she would heartily recommend that we support this motion, and also she spends the greater amount of her time out on that road trying not to write or charge her way out of this, but there is no other way to manage it right now, and it's not effective and it's not safe for our public or our frontline officers.
Thank you. So before we go to Councillor Finn for her final words, I just want to say a couple. In a recent address, someone asked me, he said, what is the biggest issue Chatham-Kent faces? And it's just what we're talking about right now. Mental health and addictions. That's the biggest issue, not just facing Chatham-Kent, but the province and the country for that matter. So the Ontario Big City Mayors, they took it very seriously, and we had a subcommittee, and which is included in the appendix, which we're talking about right now. There's 16 recommendations in there to help improve mental health. And a lot of it, as we talk about, involves more funding. We can't do it with the existing funding. It talks about how can we reallocate some funding to get better use of it. And the other big thing that the province seems to be missing is prevention. That we talk about a number of things, and we got to slow down the process of people getting into this situation. It was surprising. There's 29 mayors that sit on the committee. It was unanimous. There's not a single one that did not support this motion. They represent about 70% of the population. Great thing is that Chatham-Kent had a lot of the pen in that report. It was Chantel Perry. She was a significant contributor to this report. So it's exciting to have Chatham-Kent a part of this charge as well. So I'm excited to support this. With that, Councillor Finn, do you have any final words?
Yeah, just in answer to Councillor Bondi's, it's a big problem, and all you have to do is read the police briefs every morning, and almost 50 to 75% of them involve a simple possession of an opioid. And when an officer is spending time dealing with that in addition, because it's entirely separate when you do a charge, it takes up their time. It's time that it could easily be resolved with getting these people the help they need instead of putting them into jail where they're not going to get that help. I don't believe it's the answer, and I've yet to meet one that has received or improved from going to jail for a simple possession. So, like I said, it's definitely something that's been needed, and we need to do something now before it gets worse.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
Couple more, please. Councillor Sakachi, are you able to vote?
Yes, I am on this one. I went through it. Look, it says submitted anyways.
Okay.
Madam Clerk.
Still waiting for 2 councillors.
Judy, did mine go through? I'm having internet issues here.
We can't tell at this point, but if you tell me
Okay.
how you vote, we will mark it in the...
I'm in favor of the motion.
Thank you. All votes are in.
Thank you.
Motion passes.
Okay, we'll move to notice of motion. I have Councillor McGrail, followed by Councillor B. McGregor.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I, Councillor Jamie McGrail, hereby provide notice that I will bring forward the following motion at the July 12, 2021 council meeting for discussion and voting. Whereas council's priorities and strategic direction for this term includes community wellness, everyone is safe and able to thrive. Whereas council's priorities and strategic direction for this term includes growth, expand infrastructure related to recreational facilities. And whereas these priorities include a dedicated focus on ensuring safe transportation through active transportation options. And whereas expanding trails and active transportation will promote physical activity and a healthy lifestyle, while ensuring everyone has access to social and built infrastructure that enables them to participate fully in their community. Therefore, be it resolved that council direct administration to install asphalt speed humps as required within the Dover Beach Park municipal lot located at the southwest end of Main Street in the municipality of Mitchell's Bay in an effort to reduce the speed of vehicles entering and exiting the parking lots. Costs associated with this installation of said speed humps are not to exceed $2,500 and are to be funded, through the Park Lot Lifecycle Reserve. Thank you.
Councillor B. McGregor.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff, and I'll read this motion, and then I'm going to move to have it voted on tonight. So it's that administration prepare a report regarding options for relocation or redevelopment of municipal assets, including but not limited to the Civic Center, as part of the plans to redevelop the DCC property.
Mr. Mayor, due to the request of voting on it this evening, we will have to have a vote to waive notice. That will be required a 2/3 vote from council before we can have any discussion on the motion that's put on the floor. Thank you.
All right, so we'll put that on the screen. Anybody have any questions regarding waiving the notice and voting on it tonight? Councillor Sakachi?
Sorry, Mayor Ken, if I just for quick clarifications, when I went to read it, it was gone. This is just regards to a report. Is that correct? Sorry, that's better. I just wanted to read. Okay, thank you very much for the clarification, Your Worship.
So Councillor B. McGregor has moved. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Kirkwood White? All right, I see a few hands and related to, are these hands related to voting on it tonight? Just, I see 2 hands up anyways. Councillor Pinsino and Councillor Oche?
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. I don't know what the rush is. This should be held over to the next meeting and then voted on.
Councillor Oche?
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just wondering if Councillor McGregor would explain what the rush is on this. Thank you.
Councillor B. McGregor?
Happy to. The next meeting's not till, I believe it's July 12th. So if we gave notice and voted on it July 12th, and then administration started working on the report, it would be some time before we saw it. So it is just asking for a report. There's no financial commitment or commitment to moving forward. And as we know, the investment group has already reached out with interest. So it really is just to get a report as quickly as we can in the really in the spirit of transparency and due diligence. So it's basically based on a tighter timeline and some anticipation of the investors to have some input with the municipality. So really just trying to make things go a little bit quicker for everyone involved, and really is not about making commitment at this point, but gathering information.
Councillor Thompson?
I very much agree with Councillor Pinsino. I don't think 2 weeks before a yes is too much to ask for, and I can appreciate that we want to keep timelines tight, but at the same time, I don't see the need to circumvent the process in a situation like this. If the issue came to us and it needed a decision by tomorrow, I understand it, but from my understanding, I mean, 2 weeks isn't the end of the world. Thank you.
Any other, Councillor Sakachi, do you have any other comments? Sorry.
No, Mayor Ken, if
all right.
I'll be supporting it.
Okay, yes, so seeing that, there's no other questions, we'll put this to vote.
I'm waiting for one more vote, councillors. Councillors, still waiting for one more, sorry. Okay, we'll close the motion. It was 12-5, so we have achieved a 2/3 vote, so we can waive notice and move on to the motion on the floor.
Okay, Councillor B. McGregor, I need a seconder for that. Councillor Kirkwood White. So Councillor B. McGregor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. So obviously we've all heard what's some really exciting news that local investors have taken ownership of the downtown Chatham Centre. And it really is an opportunity to continue the momentum of redevelopment of downtown Chatham. So we know this ownership group well from past projects in our community, and it's pretty clear they'll not only be successful, but they're going to do something that's a net benefit to the community. And I think we're also all aware that they've expressed some interest in how municipal assets could be involved in that redevelopment. And knowing that we wouldn't want to continue on with those conversations without some sort of formal input and understanding what's going on publicly, so getting a report back, I think that's a really important first step in understanding what this development could mean for downtown Chatham, and really entering into some of those discussions and provoking some ideas. So the intention really is to just get some feasibility information back to understand the interests of the investment group, and if there's some opportunities there to address some of the challenges that we have with our municipal assets.
Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I'm not sure why my hand keeps going back up, but I did not push anything, so I don't look to speak on this matter.
Oh, seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes.
Closed session reports. Councillor C. McGregor, and I'll have Councillor Wright second it, please, when she's done.
Thank you, and hopefully I don't cut out on you. I am having internet problems here tonight. So tonight I'm bringing to you the closed session meetings of June 21st and this evening. The June 21st meeting, absent was Councillor Oche. Council received information on labor relations or employee negotiations with regard to Riverview Gardens, Section 2392D of the Municipal Act. Tonight's meeting, absent was Councillor Wright. Council directed administration on proposed disposition of land by the municipality with regard to offer to purchase property identification number 006020253 Cross Street and Robinson Street in the community of Dresden. Proposed disposition of land by the municipality with regard to offer to purchase 52 Dell Street, Wallaceburg, Section 2392C of the Municipal Act 2001. And advice was subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, with a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on by the municipality with regard to Tech Savvy Inc. request for fiber expansion funding, Section 2392F and K of the Municipal Act 2001. And council received information on labor relations or employee negotiations with regard to Riverview Gardens, Section 2392D, Municipal Act 2001.
Councillor Wright, can you get a second on that?
Mayor Caniff, perhaps you better ask somebody else because I missed the one meeting, so I don't know what it was about. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Hall, can you get a second on that?
Happy to second, Mayor Caniff.
Excellent. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes.
Okay, council information package. We have a number of items being pulled. So Councillor Finn and Councillor Kirkwood White, when I go through all these, I'm going to ask that you move to accept all of the ones that I don't mention. So we've item 2C pulled by Councillor Latimer, item 2D Councillor Crew, and item 3E and 3F pulled by Councillor Latimer. All the others, can I get a motion to accept the remaining ones? Councillor Kirkwoodite, and seconded by Councillor Finn. Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Okay, we'll go to item 2C, Councillor Latimer.
Yes, I was hoping that the communication received from Hydro One regarding the Return to Coaching Community Grant and the Safe Play Award applications could be circulated to all of our community recreation associations. Perhaps Mr. Mailing could take care of that. These are community grants that are available to their application deadlines are September 1st, and it's up to $2,000. And another $1,000. So they're worthwhile grant applications for all of those organizations hoping to get back out in the field.
All right. Mr. Kelly, can you confirm that you can get that done? Okay,
hello,
I'll
Mr.
have,
Mayor. Hello, Mr. Mayor. Yes, sorry
yes.
about that. I'm having a little trouble with my mute button. But yeah, we'll do our very best. If I would like an opportunity to review it, but I'll do my very best to meet that.
All right.
Thank you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Crew, item 2D.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I was really interested in this letter of endorsement. They're seeking endorsement for the anti-hate crimes and incidents, plus banning symbols of hate. And it's private members bill by Peter Julian. So I sent the motion into Meredith and Judy. Did you get it?
Yes, we have it.
So am I able to just make a motion?
You could just make a motion to send a letter of support, just like the resolutions. That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, and I understand Councillor Latimer, you wanted to second that?
Yes, I do.
Excellent. Councillor Crew, any other comments?
I think that it's really important that in this day and age, with the murder of the Muslim family in London and the George Floyd episode, and all these different things, the racialized things that are happening in our community, and the hate crime that's being brought out because of it. I think that we need to take a stand and speak up. And I think by supporting this, it's just one more thing we can do.
Okay, seeing no other questions, anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 3E, Councillor Latimer.
Yes, I wanted council to consider supporting the resolution letter from Plimpton, Wyoming Council concerning resolution funding for the maintenance and preservation of abandoned cemeteries. The province has mandated that municipalities take over our smaller family cemeteries that are often after the family members are long gone. These cemeteries remain our responsibility. And I think if the province is going to mandate for us to take care of them, they should be giving us some money to do that. So this is in recognition of that. So I would think Mr. Mardling would appreciate the assistance in this budget.
Can I get a seconder for that? Councillor Finn. Any questions? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. And last is 3F. Councillor Latimer.
Yes, this is also near and dear to my heart. This is a resolution from, the town of Fort Erie, and it's with regard to the federal government's licensing of cannabis operations and previously illegally operating operations, and that the federal government look at prohibiting the ability to obtain a license to grow cannabis if any of the owners, including those owners within a corporation, have ever been convicted of operating an illegal cannabis operation, and that the federal government look at restricting lands previously operated for illegal cannabis use from obtaining a license for a period of 5 years from the date of the offense. Right here in our own municipality, we've had an illegal operation that is still an open charge or a case, and that operation is back up and running legally, apparently, again, and well within the current law. So something needs to be done, and I would like to support this resolution.
Can I get a seconder for that? Councillor Crew. Any questions? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. We'll go to non-agenda business. Councillor Kirkwood White, followed by Councillor Scotchy.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. For those councillors who picked up their packages at Civic Center this past week, in your package was this wonderful little, what they're calling a culture card. I'll show it to you here. And it was provided by the knowledge keepers of the various Indigenous communities and representatives from the municipality, Child Care and Early Years Division, St. Clair Catholic and Lambton Kent District School Boards. And I have a question with regard to the quantity of these culture cards that might be available for people who might like to have one. This is really well done, and it's exclusive to Chatham-Kent. So if somebody could answer that question, that would be great.
Mayor Caniff, it's April Reed Dyke, General Manager, Community Human Services. Certainly we have a number of these white that we can get out to anyone who would like a hard copy of it. This is a couple years in the making in terms of getting this culture card right, but we can certainly get some information out that would allow us to get these culture cards into the hands of people who would like them. But we do have quite a number of them printed.
Great. Thank you very much, April.
Councillor Sakatchi, followed by Councillor McGrail.
Thank you, Mayor Camp. I just wanted to make a quick comment and then had a quick question. I just wanted to congratulate Brianne Nichols. Her Olympic dream has recently just come true. She is from the community of Blenheim and went to school there, and she has been selected to the Canadian Olympic sevens rugby team. And I think that is an absolute amazing accomplishment, and just wanted to give her some recognition. And I just wanted to have a quick question for Dr. Reedyke. Dr. Reedyke, I know that recently we've just been issued with a hot weather advisory. I know many times in the past your team has done an exceptional job in regards to utilizing some of our municipal assets like libraries to let people get some reprieve from the heat. With the current regulations and restrictions, I'm just wondering what your team is looking at doing for people that need to get some reprieve from the heat.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Thank you, Councillor Sakatchi, for the question. Certainly, all of our public health messaging around heat alerts, we certainly have released that today with concerns of the heat really through tonight and tomorrow. We'll see some reprieve coming shortly. What our biggest recommendation is right now is that people be aware and check on their neighbors. So like you've indicated, libraries are still closed. We're open for curbside, but folks aren't allowed in the libraries. I don't encourage, a whole bunch of people to go out shopping and those kinds of places with air conditioning. So I think what we're faced with is finding that kind of cool breeze. All of the splash pads are operational and running, finding a place to cool off, staying hydrated, and really being aware of activity between the hours of 10 and 4, and trying to stay indoors if you can during those times. And like I said, heat really impacts our most vulnerable. Quite often we are concerned about cold weather days. It's actually the heat days that are much more kind of concerning to us in public health. And we do have, for any of our vulnerable individuals, Hope Haven is always open during the daytime for individuals in need of really getting out of the heat or the cold downtown. So, and then any other information we can get out, certainly we can get that information out to the public.
Thank you, Dr. Reedyke. That was just my biggest concern is in regards to the vulnerable people that would be out in the community that had no, reprieve. So to hear that there's at least a functioning potential cooling station, that is definitely beneficial, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McGrail, followed by Councillor Latimer.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. My question is to Mr. Kelly. He kind of has seen the email from earlier today. I have a constituent that has some concerns with a local business of dumping dirt. He has taken the proper steps, and he is working with the MECP to help with the situation. but it's kind of increased now that there's an accusation of dumping into our ditches. So that's a concern to me. And I know in your response today, you said, he's gone to correct action by calling MECP, but because of now dumping in our ditches, as in liquids in our ditches, is there anything the municipality can do to at least investigate this? If not, contact MECP and put a little more pressure on this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is their jurisdiction. The MECP have the ability and the authority to issue orders if they're applicable. So the best I can do, I will reach out to the MECP, and if your constituent could maybe send me the name of the person he talked to at the MECP, we will try to do our best. But really, this is their jurisdiction. This is their job to take the appropriate action. But I'd be happy to apply any pressure I can from my side. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. I will forward that information to you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Latimer.
Yes, thank you. I have had a multitude of phone calls from people vocalizing their disappointment in the current woodlot preservation survey, whether they are for or against the establishment of a bylaw. They all feel the questions are predisposed and leading. And consequently, many of our impacted stakeholders are choosing to boycott this survey. And I really think this may lead to giving us some unreliable results. This survey, like a few others that have been put out there, appears to have an inherent bias. So I'm wondering if somebody could comment on how staff have attempted to mitigate this effect and or perception of this effect.
Bruce, are you able to comment on that?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll attempt to comment on that. We've heard comments to this fact as well a few times. That said, I think it's important for people to understand that the survey council asked us to find input on options for whether it be incentives and preservation, right? And the reality is there's three choices there to look at. And all we've asked folks to do, is to comment. So council has an idea on which one of these different approaches you may think is best. So that's education, that's incentives. And then of course there's regulation as well as a third option, right? So we don't personally think it's biased. I know I've read through numerous comments on there. There's, I think, 1,100 comments to date on there, where a lot of people have provided a lot of, good input, both, all along the spectrum. And that's what we're really trying to understand. What's your thoughts just on the various instruments that could be applied here? And I think the intent is that, the survey is just one piece that, we'll use in a report back to council at the end of the day. I don't think folks should say, this is a vote on everything, right? It's just, we'll provide everything in a report back to council and a summary of those comments as well at the end of this. In a perfect world, we were asked to do an online platform, based on Let's Talk and develop a survey. So we're trying to, go above and beyond and get people to think a little bit actually, and provide their thoughts on each of these pieces versus just a regular type of a survey. So it's about all I can really say on it at this point in time. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. McAllister. I would encourage all of our constituents to participate in the Woodlot Dialogue tomorrow, 6 to 8 p.m. And they can register for that on the Let's Talk platform. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other hands, we'll go to the first and second reading. Councillor Solomon, Councillor Pinsino.
I can move, Worship. I'll second it.
All right. Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Third and final reading, Councillor Foss, Councillor Oche.
So move.
So seconded.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Resolution of council in closed session. Councillor C. McGregor, and I'll get Councillor Thompson to wrap it up for us.
Thank you. And through the mayor, I would move that Chatham-Kent Council adjourn to its next meeting to be held on Monday, July 12th, 2021, and that Chatham-Kent Council authorize itself to meet in closed session on that day to discuss any matters permitted by the municipal act.
I see Doug's already left, and I will second.
Okay. Anyone opposed to wrapping this up tonight? Seeing none, it's a wrap. Have a great night, everyone.